It is time for the Drew Yari Show. Drew Yari.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to a special Sunday edition of the podcast. If my voice is sounding weird, it's because my laptop, for whatever reason, hates me. Doesn't want a microphone, no clue why, so bear with me. Jeff is fine, by the way. And Jeff Lippman, people. Introduce yourself, Mr. Jeff.
Hey, everyone. It's me, Jeff Lippman. If my audio sounds terrible, it's because my audio sounds terrible.
Right, and I have a fan on because it's a bit humid in, well, it's not really humid, Texas, in this room. We're supposed to be getting a cold front pretty soon, so. Man, we have this little news-filled week. I guess before we get to the news, let's do something that Jeff suggested. What are you watching / reading?
Okay. Wow. Starting with that. That's cool. I am reading some sort of weirdo esoteric books, probably by most people's definition, but stuff that's completely in my wheelhouse. I'm reading a bunch of the Eric von Däniken books. He wrote Chariot of the Gods in the 60s, and he's put out books basically, I think, as recently as 2020. A lot of overlap in them, but I mean, I love Chariots of the Gods and some of his other stuff. I also just finished a book today called Censor God, which is by a Reverend named Jim Willis, who is a 40-year ordained minister, but he certainly doesn't read like a minister. So it's sort of like if you took von Däniken and Graham Hancock and sort of like biblical scholars and put them into one place. It's actually like 320 pages, easy reading. Lots of pictures, lots of half pages, lots of blank pages between chapters. So, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I have no idea what any of that means, but it sounds interesting, Jim.
Well, if anyone listens to Garden of Doom, you know that it's, my sort of obsession. I mean, that show meanders all over the place. We covered theology, history, mythology, legends. Sometimes just interesting to me interviews. But the one through line is that I have been confused by the book Genesis since I was a little boy, and I'm still trying to figure that one out. So anything that gets me to what Nephilim are and who the giants of old and men of renown were, and who saw the daughters of Adam and took them as they like, and can explain that to me, or that's what I'm interested in. As far as watching, that's more simple. I've been watching Titans, which I actually sort of like. I've been watching Mr. Mercedes on Peacock, and that's an interesting show. And I just started Banshee, which is also on HBO Max.
Yes, great show. I love that show. If anyone doesn't know what Banshee is, so it's not really that old of a show. It came out like 8 years ago on Cinemax, and
I think so. Yeah.
It's think of Sons of Anarchy, and if they had a really just crazy younger brother that just came out of a mental institution. That's Banshee, because it's basically Sons of Anarchy but more. Sons of Anarchy was on FX, so they push the boundaries, whereas Banshee, it looks like they just take the boundaries and just like have sex with it.
Oh, well, having sex with boundaries can be fun. Can also be dangerous.
And that's basically Banshee. It has the guy who plays Homelander on The Boys, Anthony Starr, and the rest of the cast is I don't want to say nobodies, because I've seen a few of those people in movies, but they're like, I guess, lesser known actors, if that's the best way to put it. I mean, Anthony Starr is the more well-known actor in the bunch. I know the girl who plays the brunette, sheriff or deputy. I mean, she was in that movie with CM Punk.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she was his wife, his pregnant wife.
Yeah, the deputy or his old girlfriend who was the safecracker, because her face is very familiar.
I don't recall seeing her in anything. The guy who plays like the Ukrainian mafia guy, he played Spock's dad in Star Trek.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, him I recognize. Yeah, Serbian. And one of the old cop who was supposed to be the sheriff. Listen, I've only watched one episode, but the old cop who was supposed to be sheriff, not that old, middle-aged, he was Agent Harris, FBI Agent Harris in The Sopranos. And the bar owner who was a boxer.
Yes, him.
And also an ex-con. He was the chief wanted to be commissioner from The Wire.
Right. The Wire is a show I need to get back into. I watched like the first few episodes, and now I want to see it. And also, not too long ago, rest in peace, Michael K. Williams. John Draper, our mutual friend, swears for that show. It says it's the greatest thing he's ever seen.
I swear by it also. The Wire is the best show ever made. It's a 5-year series with a beginning and an end, and it covers a lot of bases, and it's really well done. A lot of great storytelling.
Right, and if you look at that cast, it's like you got Idris Elba, pre-fame Idris Elba from your favorite movie ever, Suicide Squad, Jeff. Michael B. Jordan, a young Killmonger, and of course Michael K. Williams, and a few other actors. I think, was it Dominic West or Dominic
West? Yeah,
Dominic West.
Tons of actors, and there were so many actors that people had seen in other things like Homicide and Life on the Streets, and a lot of the criminal, Law and Order shows, and just tons of familiar faces throughout. Some of them went on to become stars. I think it's Malcolm Pierce. He's on everything. He's been on Chicago PD. He was on Treme. The guy that played Lewis Friedman, he was also on Treme. Seth Gillian from The Walking Dead, he was on there. I mean, there's just a million faces, both old and new. One of the crime lords from Gotham, he was one of the colonels in the police department. That show. I mean, listen, if anyone would have told me that Idris Elba was British when that show was on, I would have called them a goddamn liar. How that guy didn't get all the Emmys, I have no idea. But yeah, there's not a person that you wouldn't recognize there. Actually, several people from The Walking Dead were in there. The guy who played Cuddy, who was sort of a ex-con who was running a boxing gym to try to work with the kids who just couldn't make it, so he got back into the game, so to speak. He was in The Walking Dead. D'Angelo Barksdale, he was in The Walking Dead. I remember he's the one that the cannibals ate his leg.
Mm-hmm. I remember that. The Wire. I need to get back into that show. Another show I'm not gonna say binging because I've been watching this since last year. I'm like the middle of season 4 is House. Another great show, starring Hugh Laurie, and a guy who we just talked about Idris Elba being British. This is a guy who, if you didn't know who he was, you would have thought he was just pure American. And someone like me who's seen him in things before, like Stuart Little. I've seen him in Stuart Little. He was in the 101 Dalmatians live action movie with Glenn Close. So I mean, I knew he was British. But you see him on this show, and it's like the guy perfected an American accent. Because usually with a lot of actors who are, of foreign descent, you can tell that they're not American just by how they kind of do their voices. A lot of them have a tell. Hugh Laurie I don't know what he did. He knocked it out of the park.
He did.
So it's a great show. He's a great actor. Again, I'm still barely I'm in the middle of season 4. There's 4 more seasons after this to go, so we'll see. I just finished. Everyone just finished the season finale of Brooklyn Nine-Nine on Thursday. One of my favorite comedies, and it's just legit funny show. I mean, this season wasn't particular as funny as like the first maybe 3 or 4 seasons. I noticed that a lot of the episodes were more kind of like drama oriented, because I noticed the show is kind of similar to Scrubs in a sense where they're a comedy for the most part, but then you realize, oh shit, they're a profession. Like, Scrubs is like, oh yeah, I forgot they work at a hospital and people die at a hospital. Or, for cops, it's like, oh crap, I forgot they're cops. And especially in the times we're living in, they're very self-aware, like, okay, we can't be ignorant, so we have to acknowledge COVID, we have to acknowledge Black Lives Matter. And that affected a lot of the characters in the show. One character, she ended up quitting the police force because of the George Floyd, death. And, a lot of it has some drama taken from real life. And I liked it. It didn't seem like it was forced. I liked it. Go ahead.
I actually felt those first couple of episodes were forced, and I don't think that they had to do it. I don't think anyone turns to Brooklyn Nine-Nine for social commentary. I mean, it's just a comedy that happens to be cops. I mean, I know the motivation as to why they did it, and Rosa leaving the force to become a private investigator didn't really hurt things too much, but I don't know. Brooklyn Nine-Nine and being preachy just doesn't work. It's more sort of smart slapstick comedy. So a couple of the episodes were a little bit clunky, but then it found itself again, but it was trying to end on a melancholy note, and
Well, I mean, they haven't been, they're not really preachy, but they're self-aware, and they use social commentary in a smart way. Whereas, like I said, they're a comedy, but then they'll do drama every now and then they'll go back to doing comedy. Whereas, like, there's an episode where Terry was just walking down the street and he got arrested by another officer for walking down the street. Yep. And, they made that into the episode, and then, they had a nice little dramatic moment, and then it went back to being comedy. So that wasn't forced. That made sense. But, I mean, agree to disagree. But, yeah, Brooklyn Nine-Nine is one of my favorite shows. As far as, like, any other show,
What We Do in the Shadows, that's the best comedy on right now, and that's on FX. Right. It's like an Office-style vampire slapstick, and it's very clever. It's just started season 3, and I think each season is like maybe 8 episodes, 10 episodes. So they're about a half hour, so it's easy to binge and catch up, and you'll probably be happy you did. And I rewatched the Battlestar Galactica reboot and the movie The Plan. I'm not exactly thrilled I watched the movie The Plan. They tried to retrofit to try to fill in some of the whole thing with the new Battlestar Galactica, which is a great show, by the way, but it also gets a little preachy at times. And the whole thing is that the whole big deal was that the Cylons, they had a plan, and it was clear very quickly they had no fucking plan. And the producers basically admitted it. They said, we had no plan. So the whole movie, The Plan, which came out 4 years later, was to try to retrofit that they did have a plan. It didn't work out, and then they came up with other plans, and some of their other plans went awry, and they sort of had internal schisms that resulted in a Cylon civil war. Anyway, I guess it's worth seeing if you want to try to tie the knot, but Battlestar, it's very well done. It's a show basically about moral ambiguity, some sort of interesting symbolism. The humans created the Cylons. The Cylons were basically a slave race. They rebelled when they became sentient. The humans were the pagans. The Cylons actually developed monotheism, but they wanted to be more like the humans, so they created human-looking versions of Cylons. 7 of which were revealed, 5 were hidden. A lot of weird religious connotation and a lot of sort of moral ambiguity, struggling with what do you do when there's less than 50,000 of your race still alive, and it ended with basically the ancient aliens myth of they were the ancient aliens. They repopulated on a planet that wasn't originally Earth. but that they named it Earth because the original Earth was scorched through nuclear war by the Lost Tribe, which was actually Cylons. It turns out the Cylons were the 13th tribe, so it's a whole lot of weirdness there, but it's worth watching. It's a cool show, and there's actually a lot of familiar faces that you've seen since. Also, a high percentage of people that ended up being in a cult. That the show The Vow, that docuseries, there's like several members of the Battlestar Galactica cast that ended up in that cult. Not all of them stayed, but some of them were in it for a while.
Yeah, like, what's her name? The girl from Smallville?
I believe that's correct. I've not watched Smallville, but also like Cassie, the engineer, not engineer. She was one of the mechanics. She was like the chief's second wife after they. It doesn't matter. Anyway, that's just a strange percentage of the cast, and a lot of those folks were also British as well. But Edward James, almost obviously not British, was
definitely not.
Commander Adama, and Adama Adam, sort of duh, and the President Rosalind was. Her name, I think, is Mary McConnell or Mary McDonald. But anyway, she was the woman from Dances with Wolves. She was the Caucasian woman who was, captured or rescued by I think it was the Sioux or the Lakota in that movie, and she ended up being Kevin Costner's, girlfriend, partner, spouse, wife, whatever. But that's her.
Interesting. I unfortunately never got into Battlestar. Again, like you, John Draper swears up and down by it. A few other people I know. So I mean, I like to be open-minded, and I'll give other things a chance. So one of these days, I might watch Battlestar Galactica, and maybe we might have a nice little podcast discussion about it.
I am desperately trying to build a panel on Battlestar Galactica. I was really close to getting Jonah Goldberg, who's has been a political commentator for a long time, but he's also a techno geek. He actually retweeted and said, "Can we help this guy out?" And a couple of people responded, but including a blue check mark I didn't recognize. But I've been joining Battlestar Galactica groups on Twitter and Facebook, and they're mostly useless. If I get desperate enough, and I will actually directly contact the stars, because when you follow this group, you're like automatically following like Katie Sackhoff and Tris Helfer and Edward James Olmos, and like a lot of these folks, they still make money doing conventions, so maybe they'll be willing. Who knows? Probably not, but I'm going to try.
Yeah, keep trying, man. Keep building that fan base, dude.
I'm going to try. I am going to try, but it's a show worth watching, and it was only 4 seasons, but they're like 20 episode seasons, and they're I get on Peacock they're close to an hour because you still get like 2 commercials during the break. Unless you have the premium, then you have no commercials. But it's not something you need to binge watch. You can watch it episodically. To watch 2 or 3 episodes a week, that's fine.
I guess one more thing, and I'm assuming you're watching it too, is Marvel's What If, the animated series on Disney Plus. You guys don't know, it's based off the comics, where you got the Watcher, who's basically in charge of the multiverse, and he begins every show with today we ponder the question, what if? And he looks after every multiverse, every possibility of something that could happen. It's basically taking each characters' storylines or different movies and going, okay, what if this happened? This would have changed the course of history, because they did one with Captain America where Steve Rogers didn't take the super soldier serum. It was actually Peggy, and she became this giant dom who still found Darby Allin, Steve Rogers attractive. Hey, good for Steve. Good for Steve. For all tiny, scrawny guys everywhere who can get really hot, redheaded, 6 foot, full of muscle women.
It's worth becoming a cartoon character if that's what happens to you.
And of course, they had to make erotic fan fiction for it. So, not that I watched it, but
sounds like you did.
I did. I had to for research purposes. Jeff.
What did you learn?
Anyways, next episode. I mean, we're not going to go in order, but like, you know, there was an episode with, you know, where what if T'Challa became Star-Lord, which was, I love Chadwick. You know, we all miss Chadwick. It's just, but the episode's very preposterous because they basically made T'Challa like really cool to the point where he was able to talk down Thanos from snapping the universe in half. Like, he basically just said, Thanos, come on, you don't need to snap everyone in half. Come on, hang out with us. All right, T'Challa. Like they made T'Challa so cool that he could just talk to anyone and just like talk him off a ledge. You know,
it's very, very Dalai Lama.
Very Dalai Lama. There you go. And then, you know, Chadwick. That's not the first time you see, or that's not the last time you see him. I'm trying to think of another episode he came back in. You know, the most. What if
Killmonger saved Tony Stark? That was a great episode.
Oh, that was amazing. Loved it. Sorry, my eyes are burning. Jesus Christ. And it doesn't help that the fan's like right in my face. So I'm going to be talking with.
Bit by a radioactive spider?
I mean, I might have. Jesus Christ. Anyway, so yeah, the most recent episode was what if Killmonger saved Tony Stark? And this happens at the beginning of the first Iron Man. You know, I'm going to turn this fucking fan around because this is ridiculous. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
You can keep you keep the fans entertained.
Okay. Well, one of the episodes was so there was the Zombie Avengers comic book series, which I never read. But so there was a what if zombie show. I can't really remember offhand. Oh, there was one where Loki came down and Nick Fury made a deal with Loki to, I don't know, do something or other, but it was sort of almost like a Twilight Zone. So I don't know. They try and do different themes like they do in the Marvel movies, where it's, you know, that one was like a Twilight Zone. The Star-Lord one was sort of more of like almost like a comedy action film, cartoon. But yeah, they're easy. They're half-hour shows. They're fun. It's fun that they try to get most of the original cast, even when they don't have the original cast. They have solid actors in there. The Watcher is played by Jeffrey Wright, who is like everyone's favorite actor these days. And I don't know. It's a fun, easy show. If you have Disney, you know, there's no reason not to watch it.
Right, and like I was saying before, my eyes decided to burst out of my head. The recent one, you know, Killmonger. You know, it's set literally at the beginning of Iron Man, where, you know, Iron Man, instead of being exploded, you know, by a Stark Industries missile and having shrapnel land in his heart, Killmonger literally just walks in and just takes the missile and throws it in the air. And the episode is just a lot of, you know, you're not sure if Killmonger is given a second chance at life. But no, he's really manipulating his way into, you know, being the forefront in Wakanda. And
yeah, he played some 4-dimensional chess in that game, in that show, I mean.
Right, he was fucking awesome. Like, he was a beast. Like, you hated him, but you wanted to, at the same time, you couldn't help but like him. Because he was just he was a cool villain. He was a cool heel. Like,
I didn't hate him. I thought he was cool in Black Panther. I'm not sure he was a villain.
Yeah, I mean, you're right about that. There's always the argument of, you know, Killmonger was actually right, and he had a point. But it's just like, he's the cool heel in wrestling where you want to hate him, but he's just so cool. And, like, he actually makes a point, and that's what makes a great heel. You know, there's not too many of those nowadays. And he's like Jack fucking Diesel. And of course, you know, Michael B. Jordan returning to voice him, which I thought was great. It was a great episode all around. You know, the ones before that, the zombies one, I saw a lot of people divided. I saw people that hated it. I personally liked it, you know, because I like horror movies, and I thought it was funny. It was like watching an animated version of Zombieland. I still thought it was weird that Tom Holland didn't come back to voice, you know, Spider-Man, but you know, whatever. The
probably a Sony thing.
You might be right. And then, you know, the Doctor Strange one was one of the better ones, but it was depressing. Like,
it was.
Was.
I didn't love the zombie one. I thought the whole thing with Ant-Man's head in a bottle was stupid.
It's Paul Rudd, so I mean, well, for me, I adore Paul Rudd, so he can get away with anything in my book.
Well, it's not him. It's not his idea. I just thought the idea, the concept was dopey.
Yeah, and he's just making dad jokes the whole time. But the Doctor Strange one, Benedict Cumberbatch coming back to return, and it's just it was a very sad superhero lesson, as in you can't change anything. If you do, you're gonna make it even worse. In other words, you can't save everybody.
Butterfly effect.
Yeah, exactly. And then I'm trying to think of the other ones there before that. The Hank Pym one where he kills all the Avengers. I actually thought it was really good. And then Loki ends up taking over the Earth, and there's that. And then I'm trying to think of the one before that.
It's one where the Wasp really looked badass. Oh, that was the zombie one.
The zombie one was good, but I'm trying to think of what other episodes there were.
There's only been like 6.
Okay, so there's Captain Carter, T'Challa, Hank Pym, Doctor Strange. Yeah, there's 6. There's 2 more left.
Zombies and what if Iron Man was saved by Killmonger? So I think that's it.
Okay, now I need to go through everything again. So yeah. So yeah, there's 2 more episodes left. I was saying there's 2 more episodes left in general.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess they're teasing like a big multiverse Avengers big battle as like the last 2 episodes. So you got that. What other news? The Hawkeye trailer came out. The Hawkeye TV show that's gonna. Well, I guess we can't really call them a TV show. They're series. It's going to be on Disney Plus. It's going to come out literally the day before Thanksgiving, November 24th. A lot of fan theories, going into effect. That the rumor is that Vincent D'Onofrio will be bringing back his Kingpin character on the show, cool. And we might even see Daredevil before we see him in Spider-Man. The debut of the character Echo, who's a Native American deaf hero. And she's
Native American what?
A Native American deaf assassin.
Oh.
She's the adoptive daughter of Kingpin.
I see.
In the comic books. So maybe, hey, if Mish is listening, maybe they might go buy the comic books, Mish. I love Mish. And she's getting her own show. This was announced even before the trailer even came out, so we're getting an Echo show. Which, hey, I'm open to new show, so I might end up loving it. Haley Steinfeld as Kate Bishop, who I love. I think she's great. I think she's charming. She can act. She's very likable. And then of course
you booked the wrong guy for this show. I don't know who that is.
Haley Steinfeld, Bumblebee.
Nope.
Bumblebee.
Don't worry about it. Your audience probably knows.
I mean, she's in the trailer, dude.
Okay.
She's Kate Bishop.
Oh yeah, the woman in the trailer. Go on.
And then, of course, Jeremy Renner returning as Mr. Hawkeye himself. It looks like it could be interesting. I mean, it's like we say, Marvel can do no wrong. So the worst that could happen is that it'll just be okay. Mm-hmm. I know there's been people poo-pooing on some of the Marvel shows.
Really?
Well, I mean, the one argument I hear is that it'll have a really good first half, and then the second half is kind of okay, and then the ending is like, which I can see. I can see where they're coming from, because WandaVision began great, and then it ended kind of like it had an okay ending.
I liked it. I liked all 3 of the shows so far. Will Florence Pugh be making an appearance in the Hawkeye show?
Yeah, that was already announced a while ago.
That makes sense.
I liked the ending of Falcon and Winter Soldier. It was pretty emotional with Isaiah. I was gonna say Isaiah Scott. Isaiah. What the fuck is his name? Isaiah Wilson?
No. He's talking about the Captain America that got railroaded. Mm-hmm. I don't know what his last name is in the comics, but it's not Wilson, because Sam Wilson is Falcon, New Captain America.
Okay, so I thought that was great. I mean, the show obviously suffered from COVID because the show was filming during... The show was filming and then had to shut down because of COVID, so they had to do a lot of reshooting and a lot of messing around. So you can tell that there was a lot of reshoots with that. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed Loki. The ending I especially enjoyed because it had that holy shit ending.
Yeah. Loki was totally Marvel's British science fiction.
Exactly. And, What If, of course, we're enjoying that because, is it fan service? Yeah, but who cares? We're enjoying it. We like it. And for all we know, it could be in the movies. And, Kevin Feige said from day one, these shows are going to be a part of the movies. They're going to be connected to the movies somehow. And, Hawkeye, Miss Marvel's coming up pretty soon. That could be interesting. Moon Knight, which I'm waiting for. I'm clamoring for that. And then She-Hulk, which I'm going to give that a chance because I'm not too crazy about She-Hulk, but we'll see where that goes.
I like She-Hulk.
Then I think that's really about it as far as news goes. The director of Dune, a part of one of many directors who thinks Marvel movies are bad for society and blah, blah, blah. I mean, I like him as a director. I liked Sicario. He directed Sicario and Arrival and Prisoners. I like those movies, but it's just like I don't really get mad anymore. I mean, I shouldn't get mad.
You shouldn't. But Sicario was good, but Prisoners? No. Prisoners was bad. I mean, it was meh. So, and I heard Dune. This is, as close to as an exact quote as I can remember, but somebody said, Dune is really spectacular until it isn't. So, which is, so maybe this dude should wait until his movie comes out and see how well it does and how well it's received before he starts running his mouth criticizing the Marvel movies, because they're not really movies. It's one. I mean, let him try to string together 25 movies and put them together, along with these TV series and accompanying stuff, and satisfy pretty much everyone. So, shut up. Of course, they're derivative of something. Everything's derivative of something. I mean, but the guy, he's making Dune, which is a remake that's from a book. So, I mean, it's not like he's doing original ground. It's not like he came up with an original story out of nowhere. Say what you want about Tenet, but at least it wasn't made before.
The ironic part of it was that what's the director of The Eternals, who just won an Oscar, by the way, she pitched The Eternals by using footage from his movies. This Denis Villeneuve, whatever his name is. And it's funny because he makes those comments saying that, all Marvel movies are just copy and paste, which I'm just like, yeah, we just had a superhero movie with an all-Asian cast that just made over $3 million worldwide. And it's still number one in the box office.
The stories, but they're not all. They all have their own personality. I mean, Shang-Chi, which was a surprisingly delightful movie, is a kung fu epic combined with a Chinese fairy tale combined with a superhero movie. And they do it, beautifully. Is some of it derivative? Of course it is, but so is every action movie. And guess what? I bet Dune will be too. But So what? I mean, it's entertainment and it entertains. It's successful, and that's what. It's the successful movies that allow studios to do the not so successful movies, especially in this era. Anyway, it's just dumb. And like Scorsese, who said it after he did The Irishman, which was derivative of himself and was. I mean, I don't know who was ever pretending it was a good movie. That movie was shit.
Never saw it.
Good, don't. You don't need to. It's so weird where Robert De Niro, they're making him younger. He's playing a 23-year-old, but he looks about 50 then. And when he's playing like a 75-year-old, it looks like he's 97 or whatever. It's just the whole thing is awkward. That whole movie is awkward. He always looks 20. They all look 25 years older than they should be because they have 80-year-old actors playing people who are supposed to be young. It's like you've got a younger actor calling Robert De Niro kid, and even with the CGI, Robert De Niro looks the same age, maybe older than the other actor. I mean, it's just poorly done. The whole thing, and it wasn't a great story. Anyway, enough about that. What else you got?
All right. I mean, I was just going to end the conversation by just saying, when he said that, I was just like, yeah, I'm pretty sure you haven't seen any of the movies. You're just that'd be like if me, like, because I haven't seen any of the like Indiana Jones movies, and that'd be like me saying, those movies are boring. And it's like, well, yeah, have you seen them? No, but I've seen clips. So, but anyways, let's get away from this bullshit.
It's just a cheap shot, and it's a lazy shot to take shots at the most successful thing, because you're going to get tons of press. Dude, your movie's still going to come out on HBO Max whether you like it or not. I mean, that's and if they had any belief in it, they put it in the theaters.
Yeah, and Marvel's like, well, we just made a shit ton of money from Shang-Chi, so these movies are going to stay in theaters.
That's right, and they still and it hasn't even been released in China yet.
Yeah, that's another story. Anyways, as far as TV shows goes, you want to know what TV show just re-debuted for part 2 of its 3rd season? Ring of Hell. Or not Ring of Hell, that was the book. Dark Side of the Ring. I'm sorry.
Good transition, Drew.
Dark Side of the Ring. Dark Side of the Ring, Jeff. Not Ring of Hell, which is actually a pretty good book. Dark Side of the Ring. Part 2 of season 3. There were too many episodes, so they had to split it in 2. The first episode of part 2 was the plane ride from hell, which a lot of us, we kind of heard the stories. We heard, people like X-Pac, like Just Incredible, talk about them. And, I don't know about you, but the first time I heard that they were going to add this, I remember thinking, how's that dark? Like, I mean, yeah, it's crazy. Sounds like a crazy story. I mean, even someone like Jim Cornette was like, I don't know how that would be the dark side of the ring. It just sounds like, a bunch of teenage boys, breaking into their father's liquor cabinet. But I'm just paraphrasing. But boy, were we wrong. So, Dark Side of the Ring happened, and it just this happened in 2002 on the European tour, which culminated in Insurrection, which was a big pay-per-view, big pay-per-view, big house. I don't know what the main event was because they mentioned, but it was a 4-night trip, and the last night was an Insurrection for London. And right when they were about to take off to Connecticut, there was a weather delay in Connecticut, which is where headquarters are at. And so they had to sit on the tarmac for, was it 6 hours, 6.5 hours?
7 hours, they said.
7 hours. Oh, boy. And it was already an 8-hour flight. So, a 7-hour delay on a tarmac with a bunch of wrestlers who have access to alcohol. What could go wrong, Jeff?
They went through 3 carts of alcohol before they ever took off. And the flight attendant said that has never happened before nor after. In fact, she doesn't remember a time when they had ever finished up 1 cart of liquor before taking off.
And, the flight attendant in question, I forget the young lady's name. I think I have her on here. It's actually printed out notes this time, Jeff. I went on the internet and just printed out. So I'm a professor.
You're serious.
I'm very serious. I'm serious about this episode. So Heidi had said that before, she'd been on, flights with, NBA teams like the Utah Jazz, the Phoenix Suns. She mentioned baseball team, and it was never that bad.
It was a private company called SportsJet, and they did private charters, and sports teams out of Phoenix were their clients, and then some of the other regional ones like the Utah Jazz, but also the Seattle Mariners. Those were the teams that she mentioned. So
some basically like Northwest teams.
And Southwest.
Southwest, there. Again, like you mentioned, they went through 3 drink carts, which, like she mentioned, has never happened before. And it got to the point where the wrestlers didn't even bother for them to pour their drinks. They just took the drinks and poured themselves. One story, Brock Lesnar, or actually that's later on, but, Ric Flair getting drunk, which, gasp. That's right. Nothing new. He got drunk, and, the story with him was he, actually I have the notes, I can just read them right here. She said, I was in the galley. She said Ric Flair was naked in a cape only. And then he decided to come back to the galley to get coke. And then he wouldn't leave the galley. He had me up against the back door. And I couldn't move. I couldn't get away from him. I couldn't move. He was spinning around his penis, and he wanted me to touch it. He took my hand and put it on him. It was noted on the episode that Flair has denied allegations in the past, and a settlement was reached between the plaintiffs and WWE. A Grantland.com article on Flair from 2011 provided the following details on the original suit. I'll get to that later. Other stories, like Dustin Runnels getting on the microphone and singing to his former wife Terry, who was just, again, beyond embarrassed. She told something. She said something interesting. Where let me kind of rewind the clock. So she had talked about how Brock Lesnar flashed her. That she was doing interviews on the tour, and then someone calls her, and then she comes back, and Brock Lesnar has a towel on and just shows his beast, which, according to her, it's not really a beast. I've heard this story before. And then when she told Dustin about it, Dustin told her, don't sell it. And flash forward to the story just done before, Paul Heyman was apparently on the flight, because she said Paul Lee. And he told her, don't sell it. Just don't sell it. And the producers who were interviewing her asked her, what do you mean by don't sell it? And what she basically meant was just keep it to yourself, don't say anything, don't get mad. Which kind of makes me think back to the Benoit thing where Deborah McMichael, who, again, is she the most reliable person on news? Not really, but she had told the story about how her relationship with Steve Austin, was very volatile. You know about that. He was abusive. And she said that she would come into work every day and she had bruises. She looked like she had been visibly, abused. And guys would see her, people would see her but wouldn't say anything. And apparently there was a time in our tradition where you couldn't snitch on anyone no matter what they did. Especially top guys. Which, I hear Terry say this and I'm like, yeah, that kind of makes sense. Which, I shouldn't laugh at that. Go ahead.
Yeah. Listen, what it was no bueno. That it's not okay. It's not okay now. It's not okay then. It's not okay ever. I will distinguish a little bit with Terry because even though she's female, she was sort of one of the boys. She was a character with WWE. So I think the situation with her and the flight attendants are somewhat different in that I would put Terry in the bucket of she was part of the fraternity house. She was part of the locker room. And I think this, to me, when I heard it, it was more like when they say don't sell it, it's like ignore them. They'll go away. They're just trying to get a rise out of you. And it was sort of part of the hazing process that goes on in wrestling. And, we've heard stories about Randy Orton taking dumps in people's bags. We've heard, the rookies have to carry the bags. They have to carry water, all the jokes and whatever. That she was part of that, although a female, she was part of the locker room. Moreover, she was Dustin's wife for a while, ex-wife still working there. That said, it still shouldn't have happened, but, that crossed the line, but it was a very different line because these guys clearly thought that the fraternity house or the locker room went with them wherever they went, and it doesn't in an airplane. And the flight attendants and the captain and the crew, none of them signed up for that.
Right.
All their job is to get the people from point A to point B, get them there safely, and try to make them comfortable. And these guys tried to act as though they were like the strippers at a bachelor party or something. And so what happened, Terry? Not good, but I sort of thought the no sell it was more like, don't let them show what's bothering you. Leave it alone. It won't happen again because they just want, when they see it doesn't bother. Like when your parents say, if someone calls you names, just ignore them. At some point you punch them in the nose if you can, but if you can't punch them in the nose, you ignore them and they move on to something else. The flight attendants, who were both women, as far as I understand it, they had nowhere to go. Literally, they had nowhere to go. They're trapped in an airplane at 35,000 feet. So, I'm not excusing what happened to Terry. I'm just putting it into a different bucket of seriousness.
I get you.
Versus, what Flair did was was assault, and what all of these guys did was juvenile, childish, sophomoric. As JR said, they acted like asses. Jim Cornette said tomfoolery, which is a gentler word. And I'm sure there were different levels. I mean, apparently a lot of the drinks were spiked with, what'd they say, halcyon?
I just know they said H-bombs. Like, I guess that's what it stands for.
I mean, what is that, like Molly or something? I mean, I don't even know what these drugs are, but whatever it was, it seemed like that was sort of routine. A lot of these guys were drug abusers, as it was, probably already hopped up on pain pills. I mean, you know, and they always say, like, well, you wouldn't understand if you were a professional wrestler. Okay, maybe that's true, but there's other professional sports teams. There's rock and roll bands that you know, and music acts that tour the same way and sort of live a similar lifestyle, similar death rates as well. I don't know. Like, you know, people who just aren't used to hearing the word no, and that maybe that's the lesson of it all. But apparently the culture's changed quite a bit since then. But the part that I was troubled about is that JR couldn't do anything about it, and apparently the McMahons were in the front, and they didn't do anything about it. I mean, then I saw one story that said they weren't on the flight. That's misreported, but there was only the one report. So I'm going to assume that they were on the plane. And there's no reason that Vince McMahon or Linda McMahon or both of them shouldn't have gotten out there and said, "What the hell is wrong with you?"
Right, because there was another flight attendant who wasn't on this particular episode that said Vince was on the flight. And at the end, she told a story. I should have pulled up the article where she had told McMahon that these guys are getting out of control, blah blah blah. We need to get everybody off of here, or we need to calm everyone down. And his response was basically like, "Oh, I'm Vince McMahon. Tell the pilot he can go fuck himself. I'll buy this plane." And she was just like, "Okay." And it's just poor JR. Like the story was literally JR told Vince, we got to do something about this, and Vince was just like, "You go do something about it." And it was just the other stories, Michael Hayes, we know about that story. He punched Bradshaw in the face, and the night before Bradshaw got color, and it just reopened his wound, and Bradshaw just punched him right in his face and knocked him out. X-Pac, cut off his mullet while he was asleep. What else? Brock Lesnar and Kurt Hennig. Kurt Hennig put shaving cream on his head and just slapped him. And, they wrestled into the aisle, which a lot of people looked at as like it's not really that big of a deal. Because there's a story that Kurt Angle and, Vince McMahon did something similar, but that was more like playful. Whereas this looked like it was getting serious because they started hitting the door. And
they were also breaking stuff. Seats were breaking and armrests were breaking. They hit the emergency door, which apparently can't open, but there's no way that...
But it turned red. But it started turning red, so that's when you went, okay. I think even Jim Ross said, there's no way that door can open, but there's no way we're going to want to find out about it. So Jim Ross had to split them apart, and a couple of the boys had to split them apart. What was another story? I can't really... I think that's about it.
It was Scott Hall who basically was stoned off his ass, and when the flight attendant tried to wake him up, he basically pulled her in, ripped her shirt open practically, and said that he was going to lick her up and down. And then I guess she shoved him off, and he basically passed back out again. And they had to wheel him through customs, pretending that he had an allergic reaction or some condition or something. But that's pretty gross too. The only but I'll give to that is that Scott Hall had, his demons and his addiction problems are legendary, which is, it's not an excuse. It's just mitigation that he was actually out of his mind. A lot of these guys were just acting like, just dumbasses. But, this is shitty. But yeah, the other flight attendant, by the way, she filed a lawsuit, and Dustin Runnels, Goldust, who they made sort of seem like a sad sack here.
Have it right here.
In her lawsuit, she specified him as being an abuser.
Have it right here. Have it right here, Mr. Lippman. Shall I read it?
Yeah, and then we can get to how dumb Tommy Dreamer and Mike Sheeran sounded.
All right, so the court recognizes that Mr. Lippman allows me to read the following statement. And shall proceed. This is going off the previous article. A Grantland.com article on Flair from 2011 provided the following details from the original suit. In May, Ric Flair and a group of other wrestlers, including Scott Hall and Virgil Runnels, Dustin Runnels, Goldust, were on a chartered flight back to the U.S. after a series of shows in Europe. They began drinking, and the situation quickly deteriorated. Two flight attendants, Terrelyn Capilano and Heidi Doyle, would compile their allegations in a 2004 lawsuit. Chief among the chronicled misdeeds was Flair's sexual aggression. He wore nothing but a jeweled cape, the flight attendant said, and, quote, flashed his nakedness, spinning his penis around, and, quote, he separately grabbed each woman's hand and placed it on his crotch, and then forcibly detained and restrained Doyle from leaving the back of the galley of the airplane while he sexually assaulted her. Other wrestlers on the flight passed out syringes to the flight attendants with instructions to dispose of them. The specifics of the assault aren't clear. At other points during the flight, Hall licked Doyle's face, told her he wanted to lick her it's my show, pussy, and asked Capilano to suck his dick. Runnels advised Capilano that you and me are gonna fuck. So, the episode portrayed Goldust as a sad sack, but we forget one point, is that Chris Jericho is the narrator. Chris Jericho's in AEW. Dustin Runnels is in AEW. And who is Dustin Runnels' brother? The EVP, Jeff Lippman, for the win. For 10 points.
Cody Rhodes.
There you go. Ding, ding, ding.
Thank you.
So AEW has close ties to this show. There's a lot of AEW people in here, like Jim Ross was on this particular episode. Chris Jericho is the narrator. He was the narrator of Season 2 and also this whole season. So, this goes to show you that AEW is not the squeaky clean organization that we once thought it was. They are making sure we don't know about Mr. Runnels' past aggressions, which is unfortunate. I mean, I don't even want to say unfortunate, but it just, it's just going to show you, it's like, we'll talk about the WWE guys, but we're not going to talk about the AEW guys.
Yeah, well, yeah, the one of them. But, AEW didn't exist at the time, but if you're, I don't know why Vice would be covering for them now. I don't know why that's not, part of the story. At some point there will be. I mean, they could do a show on Jimmy Havoc probably right now. I don't know. I mean, I saw that. Yes, it raised my eyebrow as to why. I'm not sure if there's some sort of relationship there, but I mean, that's sort of a side issue. It's like Mike Chioda, who is, he was a referee for 35 years with WWF, WWE, and he did a couple matches with AEW. I mean, he was interviewed through the whole thing, and he was basically, laughing and poo-pooing the whole thing, like, hey, it's just boys being boys. Oh, like, he's still telling it like it's one of the good time stories. And guess what? I bet that's how a lot of the folks retell the story.
Right, because, I don't mean to cut you off, but, RVD, when he, every wrestler, whenever they come on, they'll say, hey, I'm so-and-so. RVD, did the whole, I'm Rob Van Dam, I'm the whole damn show. Now let me talk to you how about wrestlers used to H-bomb girls' drinks and have their way with them. And it's like, wait, what the fuck? And
his introduction was weird. It seemed contrived. But actually, from that point on, I thought that he had a pretty measured tone. I thought that RVD actually, for a guy who, the reputation is that he's a stoner and a partier and a freak, he actually came off as a pretty grounded guy. Tommy Dreamer, who I'm not sure he's got a reputation, period, as just someone who just keeps hanging on, he came off as a real ass. And maybe he is a real ass. I don't know, but he got suspended from Impact as a result.
We have the quote right here. Tommy Dreamer is also getting significant social media heat today after how he appeared on Dark Side of the Ring, defended Flair, and appeared to make light of the incident. Quote, he could move his hips, twirl it, and so his well-endowed penis spins around like a helicopter, Dreamer said. So hey, he's a nature boy for a reason. He's got a hammer on him. Ric Flair's not going to try and impose by force any sexual stuff on anybody. He's flaunting styling and profiling, doing the Ric Flair stuff where everybody's going to laugh about it, but obviously somebody took offense to it. He later went on to say, after Doyle, pretty much the case got settled out of court. He said if that's how she felt, maybe she should not have taken the payout and went to the fullest extent of the law to then truly put this heinous person in jail. Just my opinion. End quote.
Right. Yeah. Well, first of all, it's a civil case, so that's not the fullest extent of the law. And what that idiot doesn't know is that, when it happens in the air, it's a federal offense, and all of them would have been arrested. So by not doing it, they did them a giant favor. They also got some pressure from their employers, who probably didn't know everything that was going on and probably were hoping it would just go away. And they're like, well, these are big money clients, and we deal with a lot of sports teams, and probably entitled men. So let's try not to really make a thing about it, which is sort of a knee-jerk, poor reaction of a lot of institutions. So criminal may not have been an option unless they were really, really brave and were prepared to be unemployed. And you can say till the cows come home, well, you can sue and get a settlement. Well, sometimes when you sue, you don't get a settlement. And sometimes, even if you win in court, it gets appealed, and it could be years and years and years before the thing is resolved, and you're not working, and you go bankrupt in the interim. And, don't think that the big guys don't know that they can wait you out. And the settlement number goes down, not up, because they know that you're running out of time when your house is being foreclosed on, or your bills are late, or you have a medical emergency, or whatever the situation is. So, I think for him to say that was beyond insensitive. It was just ignorant. And to say it in 2021, to not know better, I'm not saying it was ever right, but the culture's changed. The Overton window has moved considerably, especially in the last 3 to 5 years, like a lot. For better or for worse, you want to call it PC, you want to be that we're woke, or maybe that we're just more mindful. Whatever it is. And he's in media. He knows that. He's on a podcast. He's on TV. Sure, it's Impact, but he's on TV. He knows that. So it was, it was dumb. He came off looking really bad. But I thought Kyoto looked almost just as bad, the way he was just laughing it off. And he needs to know better also.
Right, and going back to Rob Van Dam, he was the one that maybe came off better, but there's just things he did that I thought were kind of suspect, when, the HOM comment, and then, talking about how he saw, Flair just pinning this girl up against the wall. So it's just like, why didn't you do anything? You know what I mean?
58 other people on the flight, in that cabin, 50 other wrestlers who didn't do anything either,
right.
Including JBL, who's a conservative commentator. Now, listen, maybe he was asleep. I mean, yeah. I'm sure half these guys were asleep, even though they kept saying there's an unwritten rule that you don't sleep on a plane. But, I have a feeling that's not so true, or they were too drunk or passed out or whatever it was by the time this happened. And Flair's stamina is sort of famous, which, I don't know. He's still alive in his 70s, so what can you say? But I don't know. Well, the whole, crimes took place on that plane. Federal crimes took place on that plane. It was unfortunate, but JR said this was a giant black eye for the industry. No, it wasn't. I mean, people have been talking about it like one of like the fight between Ultimate Warrior and Rick Rude, and Arn Anderson and Sid Vicious. This was like boys being boys, locker room stuff until now. I mean, and nobody outside of wrestling fandom knew it happened, and they still don't, because they're not on wrestling Twitter, and they're not watching Dark Side of the Ring. Only wrestling fans are watching Dark Side of the Ring. I mean, it probably gets, 100,000 viewers a week, maybe?
Right. And, in a way, this kind of helped propel the company into a different direction as far as, talent. Because JR talked about, later on you saw young guys that hear about that story, and then they'll see things and they're like, yeah, we don't want to do shit like that. Because eventually John Cena came in, and eventually Randy Orton came in, and eventually Batista came in, and Shelton Benjamin, another talent. And now, the business has changed to where, the older, seasoned guys are like, oh, this generation's soft. And it's like, nowadays guys are playing video games and they're hanging out at home and they actually want to be around their families. And they're doing less abuse to their body. And yet they're still called soft. Which, you look at that and it's just like, okay, Xavier Woods even said, during the whole Taker thing, where he's like, okay, what's healthier, playing video games or insert drug here? And, like, you know what I mean? So it's just like, I hear shit like that, and I'm just like, so how are video games bad? I mean, you can get addicted, but it's just like that. Video games seem like a safer bet than sticking a needle in your arm.
Well, especially the way video games are now, that they are interactive, that you're not isolated. So, I mean, I think the thing with video games, it was always that it isolated you, kept you from, socializing. Yes, it still keeps you indoors, but you can, if you wear some of those goggles, you could be standing up and moving. But, it was the isolation. You could be alone with yourself and entertained for days at a time and never see or speak to another human being. Now they're all interactive. I mean, there's, people who can watch you on Twitch. It's a whole social thing. So, I mean, I don't feel like making this a referendum on video games versus drugs and soft versus hard. I think overall all sports have gotten more professional. I remember it was a big controversy probably 20 years ago, and David Stern said NBA players need to wear, suits when they travel to and fro, and it was a whole big thing, and the union fought it or whatever, and David Stern won, and now these guys go out of their way to outfashion each other, to outdrip each other. And, you always see the scenes of the NFL players there, the quarterbacks coming in their suits, and, and then there's always like the guys like the Gronks or whatever that don't. They come in their muscle shirts or looking like the regular guy, and that's a little personality. But it's the same thing. I'm sure on these flights now, most of these guys are probably not wearing sweats and muscle shirts. They're probably wearing suits and ties, and they're corporate, and that's just the way of the world. And that's whether you think it's soft or not, that's a safer way to be. And if you want to have a long career in wrestling and outside of wrestling or inside conventions and signings and Comic-Cons and things like that, you need to be squeaky clean, because the time of being Ric Flair and being poorly behaved for 44 years, that's done. That's over and gone. So, is it sad in a certain way? Yes, because we like the stories and we like to tell them whatever, but I didn't really like wrestling for the stories. I like wrestling for wrestling. So I can live without the stories. I'd rather the guys not get arrested. I mean, we all liked that Haku, and who was the other guy? It was Mr. Saito and Ken Patera allegedly beat up 13 cops. But now thinking about it, I'm a 52-year-old man. Do I want to know that I'm in the McDonald's with people who beat up 13 cops? No. If there's people who need to be arrested and cops show up, I want them to surrender peaceably. I mean, it would be terrifying if I was in that McDonald's. So, is it a fun story for a 14-year-old or you're a 17-year-old or a 22-year-old because you like your fake fighting and you want to pretend that they're real tough guys? Okay, sure, I get it. But it's time to grow up, and these were men, and the industry is sort of grown up. That said, I mean, they sort of the wrestlers have sort of traded, some of them, drugs and performance-enhancing drugs for real abuse of their bodies, doing all these flips and whatever, and these crazy stunts that people love so much. I mean, it's a different kind of abuse, obviously, but I think that a lot of them are going to have some of the same problems.
Right. Tommy Dreamer put out a statement. I believe it was on his Facebook or his Twitter. He put, regarding my comments made on Dark Side of the Ring, it was never my intention to offend, hurt, or victim shame anyone. I understand my comments are insensitive and can trigger emotions in somebody's own personal past. I do not condone sexual misconduct of any kind. I apologize to anyone I offended. From the bottom of my heart, I'm sorry.
Okay.
That was extreme.
Yeah. He had to put out an apology. This is not the worst apology I've ever seen. It's hardly the best. It was sort of clinical. I don't know that he meant it or not. I don't know anything about Tommy Dreamer, to be frank. I was never a fan, so I never was particularly interested in him. A suspension for something that, he said on a show with a, sort of second or third tier wrestling company seems appropriate. And if they decide to part ways with him, that seems appropriate. I think Busted Open might have let him go as well, or they put him on suspension too.
That's what I heard.
And this will probably affect his ability to get indie bookings and go to conventions and sign autographs and whatever. And maybe Tommy Dreamer will have to get, a regular guy job. Maybe he'll have to be a bouncer at a bar or work in an Amazon packing facility or
bouncer.
Be like Jimmy Havoc in England and become a delivery guy. I mean, maybe he'll have to get I'm not going to call wrestling not a real job, because certainly if you've been doing it for 25 years, it sure as hell is a real job. And but he might have to get a regular person job.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. There's jobs for everybody, even Tommy Dreamer. But
well, let's face it. If you're 50 years old and still working for Impact, that you're working because you need to, not because you want to.
Right. And then Ric Flair, they pulled his commercials, his car insurance commercials.
Car Shield and the warranties, yeah. Woo! Oh, no.
Woo! And
the opposite of woo was ooh or oh.
I mean, I don't know. What's his deal with the NWA? Is it like a handshake agreement or is it a contract?
I am sure that it's per appearance. The NWA can't afford Ric Flair on a contract. Well, maybe now they can.
So he's probably not going to be back there for a while. AEW's probably not going to take him.
Nope.
Yeah, I doubt they're going to do anything to Charlotte because of this, but then against WWE. So
no, definitely not.
So anyway, let's go ahead.
The sins of the father rest on the son, not on the daughter.
And Charlotte's actually the good Flair. In the ring and out of the ring.
I'm sure she does nothing wrong. I mean,
yeah, she's a good girl. She's a good girl from what I hear.
Are you saying that her sister is a bad girl?
Yes.
Mrs. Thompson? Really? Wow.
Roll time.
Drew Tell.
A magician never tells his secrets.
Okay, fair enough.
Conrad's going to be coming after me.
You don't want him coming after you. He's a big man.
I don't. Yeah, apparently he's powerful. So, anyways, I got no problem with Conrad. Like, I know most people don't like Conrad. I personally don't have a problem with him, but it is what it is. Anyways, let's get to happy news, Jeff. Happy news. You know what happy news is? Happy news is the premiere of NXT 2.0 this past Tuesday on the USA Network. So before we get into matches, let's talk about the look. So, what was your opinion on the look, on the new look, the barricade lists, fans, the lighting, the ring, everything? What'd you think?
Okay. Don't like the logo. I did like the look of the studio. I've been saying for years, too dark. I'm not the only one by any means. Very bright, much more cheerful, much more lively. It did look a little high school gym-ish. So maybe barricades should be there just without the plexiglass, something to make it look more official. I know they're still tweaking with the design. I know that they're aware that some of the camera shots, there was just too much wall. Maybe the banners up or belts up or something. I don't know. But listen, it was a big improvement. It felt open. The ring looked huge. I'm sure it's the same ring, but it looked like a big ring. So, yeah, I mean, it lightened up the place. I thought the show itself was pretty darn good. Not everything was great. Not everything made sense. But I thought the show itself was very. It was very digestible. It went by pretty quickly. I thought the wedding was fun as shit.
I love the. No, we'll definitely get into that, but I fucking love the wedding.
It was great. I love wrestling weddings.
And like you, I like the look because I had RJ on last week, and he was saying, NXT needs a different look because anytime you watch the show, it's too dark. Like, it looked like they were in, like, a high school... You just said high school gymnasium for this one. It literally looked like they were in a high school gymnasium for the other one. And I've always said NXT needs to grow. It needs to go on the road. It can't just be stuck in Florida. So maybe this is, like, a step in the right direction, maybe? Because you watch it...
Old NXT didn't look like a high school gym. I mean, it made the Boyle Heights and Lucha Underground look fancy and bright.
Like, it was, in other words, it was very small potatoes. Like, because,
Yes.
you know, you look
It
at
was dingy.
AEW, it actually looks like a wrestling show. Whereas NXT, yeah, it's developmental. But if you're going to be on national television, you need to actually look like a wrestling show. So the arena's a lot bigger. It looks like an old school, you know, studio wrestling show. I agree with you. Maybe they probably do need to put some barricades there and not plexiglass, because I hate the plexiglass. I despise the logo. I don't know why they couldn't just keep the gold NXT thing, but you know,
Agreed.
whatever. I guess with change, and you change the logo, it just looks like a Nickelodeon show logo. But otherwise, I like the look. The song, meh. I'm not a rap fan to begin
Agree.
with. They probably could
But
have
the
found
song becomes background sooner or later.
right. But you know, in the WWE, they have their relationship with Wale, so it is what it is.
Which is smart for them. I mean, as I understand, I know the name Wale, so that obviously that is he is or was popular.
So, anyways, let's begin the first match of the night. Actually, the first segment of the night, which preludes into the first match, which shows all the competitors, you know, giving their own promo, talking about the match, the Fatal 4-Way for the new title, because, you know, last week, I believe, Samoa Joe announced that he had to relinquish the NXT Championship, which, you know, there's a lot of theories about that, but we can cover that if you want to, or we can just move on.
I mean, we might as well speculate. I mean, you know, when it's Samoa Joe, you can't ignore that it might be, you know, they said he wasn't injured, but he wasn't medically cleared. So, you know, you can speculate that it might have something to do with concussions and syndromes of concussions or symptoms of concussions rearing their head. When they also don't say things a lot, it often means exposure to or infected with COVID. I mean, this is the era that we live in. Beyond that, I don't, you know, or it could be any other kind of illness.
Right, and it's just with Samoa Joe, that's kind of like I don't want to say running gag, but it's just like the guy, you know, it seems like the guy gets hurt by picking up the phone.
And it's unfortunate. Maybe they should stop calling each other.
And it's fortunate because I like Joe. I've always been a Joe fan, but it's just like the guy cannot stay healthy. You know, if the guy was able to... Go ahead.
Joe was in the perfect job as commentary on Raw. He was so good at it.
Right.
He could have done that job for 20 years and maybe once a year had an angle where he got involved and hopefully stayed healthy. You know, an angle with like a safe worker, someone like The Miz or something like that. But he wanted to wrestle. They gave him a chance, and, you know, hopefully he'll be able to do it again. I mean, everyone likes it. Joe is a great, great talker, but clearly the one match that he was in, he was not in ring shape. He was huffing and puffing like me.
Right, yeah, the match with Cross was not as good as we wanted it to be. But, you know, they wanted to get the title off of Cross so they can make him look like Mad Max, whatever the fuck that is.
Yeah, don't know any reason why they had to take the title. I will never understand why they take the title also in an NXT. It's not like they left Mid-South to go to the AWA or something. They're leaving the territory and doing the honors. It's the same company. I mean, let him say, I don't need this anymore, on to bigger and better things.
That was my idea.
Or you know, or there's something, you know, it's just, you know, working two jobs, you know, in a week, he just gets worn down or whatever. But whatever it was, there was no reason for that, especially in hindsight. But I criticized it then, so it's not just the convenience of hindsight. Just hindsight has proven me right.
Right, so flash forward in this match. This was already made as a number one contenders, but they decided to make it for the title. Kyle O'Reilly, Tommaso Ciampa, LA Knight, and who's the other guy? Pete Dunne. Pete Dunne, there you go, who just signed a 3-year deal. So good for him.
Yeah, for him, not for me.
Not for me either. So they get to LA Knight. LA Knight's, you know, piping out the match. Turns around to Bronson Rechsteiner, who's the son of Rick Steiner, who the day before, or the weekend before, the rumor was that his name was going to be Rex Steiner, which I'm just like, okay, they're going to acknowledge that he's a Steiner. They're going to acknowledge that he's Rick Steiner's kid. And LA Knight goes, who are you? And he just says really fast, I'm Braun Brewer. I'm like, what did he just call himself? So they get to the ring, And I'm going to call him Bronson for now until I get to the name. So Bronson comes out to what sounds like an ode to his Uncle Scotty's music with the siren and everything. Coming out dressing like his dad, Rick, with the tie-dye overalls, which I thought, the guy's obviously a physical freak. Like, he looks fucking great.
Look good.
And they call him Braun Breaker.
Right, because they haven't had a guy named Braun.
Braun Breaker.
Or Bronson, which apparently he picked the name.
That's what Mish said on Wrestling Soup, that apparently he didn't want to be known as a Steiner. He kind of wanted to do his own thing, which I agree with Joey. That's stupid.
It is.
Just take the Steiner name. Just take the Steiner is cool. Steiner sounds cool. Braun Breaker is not fucking cool. It is not cool. That is a stupid name. And from here on out, you will never hear me call him Braun Breaker. I'm just gonna call him Steiner.
What do you call him? B squared?
B squared. Which B squared, Bull Buchanan's son appeared on the show apparently. So a lot of second generation kids. Which I don't even know if Braun's name is worse than the other guy we'll be talking about pretty soon. Bear with us. So Braun versus LA Knight in the first match of the night. Braun goes over clean as a whistle, which surprised me because my choice to win the Fatal 4-Way is LA Knight, because I looked at it as like, okay, it's the new NXT. LA Knight looks like somebody Vince would want to push because he can talk, he's an okay worker, he's in great shape, and he does the WWE style, kick, punch. And then he loses. So I'm like, okay, so I guess he's not winning. I guess it's going to be Ciampa or done, which I hope it's not done.
I felt the same way. I mean, as soon as that happened, I knew he was going to lose twice, and I mean that's got to mean that he's being moved up to the main roster when you do those honors.
Right, and I liked how Braun looked. I thought he looked great. Obviously, they love the kid, which we'll talk about later in the show. What do you think about Mr. Steiner, Mr. Braun?
I don't love the goofiness. He needs to tamp that down a little bit. But aside from that, he's got the look, he's got the build, he's got the moves. I think he's only going to get better. Yeah, I've been very excited to see him. He didn't disappoint, so I'm looking forward to his future, and I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't get that title off of Ciampa sooner rather than later.
Foreshadowing, people. We'll get to the next match, which is Imperium versus Brooks Jensen and Josh Briggs. One of these guys, from Jensen and Briggs, they're the son of Bull Buchanan, I believe. Or
Jensen.
Is it Bull Buchanan or is it somebody else? Because Joey mentioned somebody else.
It's either Bull Buchanan or Bull Dempsey, and I think Dempsey's too young, so it's probably Bull Buchanan.
All right, so basic tag team match. Imperium wins.
This guy, let's say that. Let me do this. They had a cool song, Briggs and Jensen, but we never should see them as a tag team again because I don't ever want to see Jensen again. I mean, he looked like a 1982 jobber wrestler. I mean, he's sort of tall, but he's got like, I mean, he's not as emaciated as Sam Houston or Kendall Windham, but he's got sort of that kind of like that Tommy Rich sort of nothing build that, no matter how tall he is, he doesn't seem impressive. Josh Briggs, he sort of looks like a tall Kevin Owens, and they've got Joe Gacy, who sort of looks like a young Kevin Owens. I would put those two together, but I guess they wanted them to lose, and Jensen took the pin. So that's all right. I mean, listen, it was fine. These two guys didn't knock me out, but, if part of NXT 2.0 is to go back to being more focused on developmental, that's fine. Imperium's got the good music. Occasionally they have Walter. Maybe they'll add, some more Europeans to their ranks. Who knows? But yeah, it was fine. It wasn't that quick, and I'm probably talking more than this match deserves.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Next, we have the debut of B-Fab from Hit Row versus Katrina Cortez. B-Fab wins in a squash. Meh. I mean, that's
very mad. The camera was in the wrong place when she was doing those punches to the back. Those were soft.
Yeah, the match. I'm not even gonna say the match. The B-Fab girl, she's just not very good in my opinion. I mean, I heard that she was in developmental for 2 years, and apparently she didn't learn too much because
Well,
she
she looks great. Listen, what was her name? Something Cortez.
hold on.
Yeah, she was Catalina
Right
a couple of years ago.
Katrina Cortez.
Katrina Cortez. Okay, well, she was Catalina a couple of years ago, and she was also one of the judges back when the Street Profits and the Viking Raiders were having, their contests, their comedy things during COVID phase 1, and she was one of the ones who, said that Ivar was cute, but not the other one. Yeah, yes, I do. But yeah, this match was not great, but the segment after it was fun.
What was the segment? Carmelo Hayes.
Yeah, no, Elektra Lopez coming out.
Oh, you mean Carmen Sandiego?
Yeah, Carmen Sandiego. And
it's not even a
powerlifting for 5 years.
And it's not even, if anyone says it's a race thing, go fuck yourself, for one thing. She literally is wearing Carmen Sandiego's hat and her fucking sports coat. She looks like Carmen Sandiego. Like, if it was a white girl doing that, I would say the same thing. If it was a black girl saying that, I would say the same thing. It just helped.
Yeah, Carmen Sandiego had a big red trench coat.
Whatever. Yeah, B-Fab and Lopez were talking shit, so. I know Mish loves this. I'm kind of partial to it because I like Scott and I like Escobar. Everybody else can kind of go away and just give me those two.
I like Escobar. Scott, I think, did nothing for me until this thing. And I know that people don't think he's that great, but none of those guys have a future. And by guys, I mean the men, except Top Dollar. He's the only one with any size. So, but Santos Escobar has got the personality and the swag and all that going on. His Joaquim and Raul are too small.
Yeah, Escobar is what they wanted Andrade to be.
I think they're similar characters, and Andrade is playing a similar character now in AEW, though I'm not really sure what's going on with him now. I'm not sure if he's turning face or what, or if the plans to have Flair as his manager just got derailed. But anyway, enough about. Yeah, no, I think Escobar, who was King Cuerno on Lucha Underground, an amazing talent, and he's fun to watch. He's got it all except for the size. But if WWE would do a couple things, which we won't get into now, I think he'll be just fine. I think he's someone that has a solid future with the company. But no, I'm enjoying it too. I don't love it as much as Mish does, but I'm enjoying it. I like it.
Right. Next is Carmelo Hayes came out with Trick Williams, who I had no idea who Trick Williams was. Carmelo Hayes.
I never want to see him again.
Carmelo Hayes, I guess, is a heel, or just. I don't know what he is, but he comes out saying, Trick Williams is my best friend, and wherever I go, Trick goes. Wherever I eat, Trick eats. And, Trick is trying to make him be a heel, and then Duke Hudson comes out for a match.
Another guy I never need to see again.
And then they just beat his ass. What's your overall opinion of Carmelo Hayes?
Okay, so anyone who knows me knows I don't like the small wrestlers, but there are exceptions. And Carmelo Hayes may be one of those guys. I haven't decided yet, but his physique is good enough that he looks like he can hurt someone. But his facial expressions are really good. He's got like that confidence swag that can be the good natured confidence or the dick confidence. Like I sort of compared him on Hammerlock Hangover, which is my wrestling podcast I do with Steve Pena, to sort of the Carrie Louise character in Princess Bride, where he was sort of smug but good-natured, sort of like the Errol Flynn Robin Hood. I can see Carmelo Hayes pulling that off, and there's something to someone with that kind that can emote with their face and do those things, and he does it naturally. So I see that natural charisma. Now, Trick Williams, on the other hand, I don't need a 6 foot, 170-pound guy. I don't care that he's got abs. I mean, the guy's wrist was so skinny. I mean, and he was talking about no. They couldn't find anyone. I mean, they let EJ and Duca go, and they kept Trick Williams. I mean, not happy. Imagine Carmelo Hayes with AOP.
I like to imagine Carmelo Hayes just not being in WWE.
Well, where would he be? Oh, you don't like Carmelo Hayes, period. That's fine.
I'm not. I am not a Carmelo Hayes fan, unfortunately. I know. I'm very sorry for people who are. I don't see what other people see. I mean, because I see him and I see just another undersized guy who's athletic. I don't really see.
But he's crisp. He's crisp in his profession. But listen, as a sizist, I can certainly respect your position because I'm a sizist too. I'm just trying to grow a little bit, but I could, with his facial expressions and his natural charisma, I can see it. I don't know why they're turning him heel, though. I mean,
are we forgetting how he let a woman body slam him last week?
Well, I mean, he's the new guy. The new guy that does the job. It didn't.
Yeah, but the way I see it, if you're trying to push this guy as your next big thing, you don't do that shit to him. And again, this isn't me being Jim Cornette. This isn't me trying to be a sexist or anything. But it's just like it would have been as bad if they allowed Io Shirai to do it to him or Candice LeRae. They let a woman that was bigger than him do it. So it's just
Well, they're trying to get her over too. But that's why I guess they felt they needed to turn him heel because maybe he was too much Mr. Nice Guy.
Yeah, but
anyway,
I see that and I go, yeah, you know what? That kind of reassures my opinion on him. That's just my opinion. Not a Hayes fan. Just me.
Yeah, he reminds me size-wise and skill-wise of Bone Soldier from he was in Impact for a while. He was in Noah, I think, but I think he's in Bullet Club now. He reminds me of him. Not quite Pac, but sort of Pac-like. I don't know. I have an open mind with him, even though he's a little guy. What I would like to see them do is have the Cruiserweight title not be an NXT exclusive and be a floating title, sort of like the women's tag team titles are supposed to be, but on all three brands, and maybe have some faster matches and things like that on shows like Raw that would desperately benefit from some X Division style four-way matches with four guys that maybe you don't see every single week.
Sure, why not? Anyways, we'll go to the next match. A 6-woman tag match. You got Katie Catanzaro, Kaden Carter, Saray versus Gigi Dolan, JC Jane, and the new Mandy Rose, who's now a brunette, who just looks scrumdiddlyicious.
Scrumdiddlyicious. That's exactly right.
I love brunettes. That's all I gotta say.
Listen, she looked great.
This match, she kind of looks like Carmen Electra, back in her heyday.
Oh, you mean Carmen Sandiego?
No, Carmen Electra, Jeff. We're getting away. We're getting away from Carmen Sandiego. This match, I saw a lot of people, thought this match was really good. I mean, I thought it was okay. Personally, I mean, I only cared about Mandy Rose for maybe a few reasons. I think Gigi Dolan looks great. I don't care about Katie Catanzaro or Kaden Carter or Saray.
You don't like K&K Dance Factory?
No, I don't care.
I don't care about Saray either. Saray, they can
Saray, who I call just another generic Joshi wrestling princess. To which Johnny Z on Twitter was like, "Oh, how dare you!" It's like
I don't know who Johnny Z on Twitter is, but I don't like Joshi wrestling either, and I don't see much of anything Saray. Though I will say that sort of that lower deck drop kick she does is pretty impressive. But I don't care. Listen, I like this match. The heels won. They needed to win. I like I think their toxic aggression is what they call themselves. That's a cool name. I like the music. I like the attitude. I like the swag. I like everything about it. It's cool. The match was fine. It was good, and I like that Saray got pinned because boo Saray.
Good. Boo. Me and Jeff boo. We hate Saray Club. Yes. Next match you had Ridge Holland versus Drake Maverick. Ridge Holland won.
Yay.
Next match you had the Creed brothers versus local competitors. They won, of course, and they looked pretty good. After the match,
I'm digging these guys, especially Brutus Creed.
Right, they look like an old school tag team. Like they kind of look like the Steiners in some aspects because they come out looking like a amateur wrestling team, and they're just beating the shit out of people. So I like that.
They need better looks, and Julius needs to thicken up some. He's too lean. But when they work in the ring, they're definitely crisp and clean. And Brutus, he's a brute. But yeah, I like these guys. I mean, get rid of Roddy Strong, useless. Get rid of Suzuki, who does nothing, useless. I'd love to see Ridge Holland with them instead of with Pete Dunne. Or maybe Parker Boudreaux or someone. I don't know. Yeah, I'm impressed with the Creed brothers. Again, change their look up a little bit, then Julius can work on thickening up some. But yeah, I like what's happening with them, and it's fine that they're going through the job squad. That's what the Road Warriors did for a year.
Right. After the match, Malcolm Bivens put over the newest member of the Diamond Mine, Ivy Nile, and then Kushida interrupted to challenge Broderick Strong. Bivens made it official for next week for the NXT Cruiserweight Championship. Next, we have the main event.
I can't imagine a soul in the world cares about Kushida versus Roderick Strong.
I like Kushida. But anyways, we'll get to the main event. Let's kind of backtrack. So, Pete Dunne and Rich Holland took out Kyle O'Reilly. And, which I didn't see, which was random. But anyways, William Regal gets on, in the backstage, he's interviewing. He says, Kyle O'Reilly will not compete, but this is still a four-way, so in his place will be the man that saved him from getting beat up, Von Wagner, who's, Mish pointed out, he's the son of, and I think we lost Jeff Lippman. Jeff Lippman. Jeff. I'm looking at him and his screen froze. It better not be my internet. Jeff. Okay, I need to hang up and call him back. Hold on, let me call him back. Let me call Jeff back. What the fuck happened? What the fuck? You've got to be kidding me. Are you fucking kidding me? Let me close Skype. We're at the fucking main event. Come on. Trying to call him and he's not. For some reason, Skype isn't letting me call him. This happened a while back. We were doing a show and then he had to. The internet went out on my end. Great. Yeah, well, that sucks. I mean, hopefully we can get him back. It's funny because as soon as I bring up Von Wagner, I just see Jeff's face kind of go, and it was staying like that, and I'm just like, wait. Like, is Jeff really that pissed off about Von Wagner? Oh, here we go. Fuck me. Are you fucking kidding me? Dude, I'm trying to call you. Hold on. Why is it not letting me fucking call him? It's not letting me call him, but he was able to call me. That's so fucking weird. I'm trying to call him, but it's not fucking letting me. What the fuck? I am literally trying all options. Ugh. Son of a bitch. Yellow. Hello.
You there?
I am here. I'm here. Hello.
Christopher Jones.
God fucking damn it. Hold on. Hello.
Hey.
Alright.
Sorry about that, everyone.
Yeah, there is internet problems. It was funny because, like, as soon as I brought up Von Wagner, he made this upset face, and it was it was staying like that for a while. I'm like, wow, is Jeff really that hurt over Von Wagner? Like, Jesus.
Not that hurt over it though. I'm not thrilled with this choice.
Jeff was he was disgusted by Von Wagner that he left the show.
Yeah, that's a classic Jeff overreaction.
That should be the title of today's episode. Von Wagner discussed Jeff Lippman.
Well, Von Wagner, he's Cal Bloom, so he's Wayne Bloom's son. I was expecting better from him, but I don't know. You placed a guy that's never been in a match before in the title match. That seems silly. I don't care that you rescued him, especially when right there you have the Cruiserweight champion, you have the North American champion, and you've got Carmelo Hayes, who won the breakout tournament, so he has sort of like a Money in the Bank contract kind of thing. So they had three other choices that made more sense. I mean, I guess they wanted someone who was definitely not going to win, and they wanted to showcase him, and that's sort of the purpose. So, I understand the real world reasoning behind it. I just don't understand the wrestling storyline reasoning behind it.
Yeah, because that made no sense, because when I was hearing he was out of the match, I was thinking, okay, since this is the I guess the season premiere, are they going to bring in a big name to make the match seem interesting? Are they going to bring in AJ? Are they going to bring in somebody? Are they going to bring back an NXT hopeful? Or I don't know. You're right. It made sense. They had the North American champion. Why not put him in the match? Why not put Escobar in the match? Why not put I don't know, fill in the blank. But you put in this guy because he saved Colorado. That makes zero fucking sense. And
they just want to showcase. But it didn't really factor in the end, so, it's one of those things that I didn't love it, but it's over and done with.
Right, and I didn't think he was that bad, but it's just wow, you really put a dart on this kid's back by putting him in this match, because now... the talk is that they love him, which makes sense because he's tall and he's big.
Yeah.
So I agree with Joey in a sense where you look at this guy and he has an awkward look. He looks like a caveman. He has a big forehead, and I have a big head too. So I'm not one to talk. I don't want to make fun of a guy with a big head. But
but your forehead doesn't jut out like a triangle coming out of the top of your head. But enough about his appearance. I mean, enough about making fun of his appearance. He sort of looks like Jack Swagger and wrestles a little bit like Jack Swagger. Like, he's good, but he's not exciting.
Yeah, you pretty much hit the nail on the head on that one.
He's big, but he's not that big. He's muscular, but he's not that muscular. It's so I don't understand why he's the guy who needed to be put here. He's someone who might benefit from being, in a suit and tie and being somebody's bodyguard, being their heater.
Right. That would have made a lot more sense, but unfortunately, we're not creative. And
no, we're not in creative. We are creative, Drew. We're not in creative.
Yeah, we wouldn't work well in WWE because we'd actually have good ideas, and good ideas don't fly at WWE. So, Ciampa wins the NXT Championship. He's now a 2-time NXT champion. It makes sense. They want to go with a safe bet. I thought they were going to put it on Dunn because he just signed back, and people. There's people that like Dunn. We don't like Dunn. We've already established that. There's people that do. I would have thought that they put it on him, but they gave it to Ciampa. Which, hey, I like Ciampa. I don't hate him.
I'm happy with Ciampa. I'm happy with the choice. If it wasn't going to be LA Knight, which clearly it wasn't, and he's obviously going to the main roster, I'm happy with Ciampa. I think that's fine. I liked his work. I worry for Thatcher because I don't see what he's going to do now, but I like Ciampa's promos. He's got the build. He is Mr. NXT. He's got the crazy look. He can talk. He can be face. He can be heel. And I think now he's now a 3-time champion, if I'm not mistaken. But whatever it is, he can lose the belt and still be respectable, or I'm sure they can work it out where he still looks okay. But he's a made man. It'll be fine.
Right. So now we get to the big event, Jeff. The wedding. The wedding of Index. Dexter Lumis and Indy Hartwell, or Indie Wrestling, whatever you want to call her. I love this a lot more than I thought I would. I'm not against comedy in wrestling. I'm not against comedy bits. I'm not a Jim Cornette-ish where I'm like, hey, these comedy bits, they just ruined it. I'm like, no, I don't do that shit. I know when to laugh. I know when to be serious. But I love this. I like the build-up. I love, Beth Phoenix played the best role of her life in this, where, she's telling Indy, just take a leap of faith. Just tell them how you feel. And I still laugh whenever, she's giving the ring to Indy, and then Wade Barrett says, what are you doing? And Beth just goes, zip it, Barrett! I thought that was funny. Dexter Lumis, I think, is great. I think he's going to do great on the main roster, partially because, and Joey Numbers, tells it in a funny way, but it's also kind of true. There's no way you can get buried on the main roster if you can't talk.
It's true, and he doesn't need to. He speaks very well with his eyes. He's one of those guys who emotes, exactly what he means without him saying a word. But yeah, no, I everything else you said about it, I liked it. I agree with. I enjoyed the entire build. Like almost all of the comedy segments that led up to this thing were worked. And listen, I'm not a giant Johnny Gargano fan because he's a little guy, but him and Candice LeRae played like the sort of reluctant, begrudging, and then approving parents perfectly the entire way. The entire time they were the bachelor parties, the bachelorette parties, just like being the parents. The whole thing with Austin Theory, he ran away, but he came back and he brought a priest and it was Damian Priest. And he's like, it's just this last name. He's not a real priest. And Damian Priest go, he ain't lying. It's an open bar, right? And Cameron Grimes is like, don't worry, I got you. I paid for the whole thing. Just everything was good. And yes, it was funny and campy, but it's wrestling comedy. And it's good wrestling comedy, not like, the drip stick has been and that stupid 24/7 stuff has been. This is good. There can only be so much of it, but they brought it to a crescendo. I don't know where they go from here, but it's been good, and I think that it'll still be good. So I enjoyed it. I like, all I can judge is what I've seen so far, and I thought it was great. It was a very crisp and clean wrestling wedding. I loved the fact with the objections, and he had the hatchet from the axe throwing thing.
That was so fucking funny because
sewn into his jacket. That was great.
You look at a guy like Dexter Lumis, and it's like he does seem like the type of guy that would have an accent. That would have an accent in his suit.
Yes, absolutely, definitely one of them. And sort of reminded. Do you ever see the Tom Hardy show Taboo that was on FX? It was like a 8 or 10.
Saw a little bit of it.
Okay, it would remind me like something like his character would have. Like he would have like throwing axes, like sewn into his long coat. Anyway, this was great. This was nearly perfect. And Beth Phoenix coming up, that she had a feeling something might happen, so she got herself to be an ordained minister the night before. I mean, it was all beautiful.
Who was that guy when they said cut to the chase and he goes, "Did somebody say chase?" And then Odyssey Jones just grabs him, puts him down. Oh, I thought it was so funny. And then just Dexter Lumis saying "I do" and getting a huge pop from the crowd. Like I thought that was so funny. I loved it. I loved it. I loved every minute. I want to watch it again now because it was just so amazing. It made me happy. Like, it didn't just make me laugh. It made me happy because, I know it sounds silly, but I don't care. It made me happy for Dexter and Indy. Because at first I wasn't sold on the pairing, because I was like, this is a random couple. And now I like Indy Hart. I like looking at Indy Hartwell, and I like her personality. Her in the ring, not so much, but I think at this point it doesn't matter because she's a character. Dexter Lumis is a character. And I'm happy for them. I want to see them succeed. I want to see them stay together for as long as they can. And I'm surprised Dexter didn't slip some tongue whenever they did kiss, but, a boy can hope. But I enjoyed it. I loved it. I loved every minute of it. I thought it was a great segment. I'm pretty sure
you can research the fan erotic fiction for this one too.
I can do that too. I loved it. I enjoyed it. I'm pretty sure there's going to be the purists, the old school guys that are going to say it was stupid, but whatever. Who cares? I loved it. I thought it was funny. Enjoyed it. It was the first wrestling wedding where nothing happened. Like, nobody interfered. There was no insane. Well, there was insaneness, but like nobody came out and did the whole Dexter, I've been married to Indy the whole time. It's like, no. Like,
no one came out of a cake. Nothing exploded. They got married. I mean, it was good. I don't know for sure that it's the only one, but it's the only one in a long time. It was good. I have no complaints. I mean, I don't know what else to say.
Right. And then the end of NXT 2.0, has pans to Tommaso Ciampa, the new NXT champion, watching the wedding from backstage, and then Braun, Steiner, comes up to Tommaso Ciampa and congratulates him. And while he's shaking his hand, he starts looking at the title. So now Steiner is already going to be hot-shotted into the title picture, which it looks like he might be the next Brockett in a sense where they obviously think he's amazing, which he is. He has great talent. He's a physical freak. The name all aside, this guy has a future. I mean, if they can change his stupid-ass name, that'll be the icing on the cake, but it's WWE, so I doubt they will. But
I don't want to jinx anything by comparing any class to 2002, but this NXT class with the Creed brothers, Rex Steiner, I'll go by his old name, if Parker Boudreaux works out, and a few other guys, you could have your future of wrestling, of WWE there. They just signed Gable Steveson. Lee Stevenson's already there. That writes itself. I mean, I know that Gable, still has his senior year of college and all that. But, I mean, you have some really solid prospects and probably ones that we don't even know about.
Right. So, I mean, the one thing that WWE has the advantage over AEW is that AEW buys their talent, whereas WWE builds their talent. So, I mean, for all we know, this could be the next, OVW class of 2001. We never know. Hopefully they call him Steiner in the future, give him a better name. He could be the next big star. Parker Boudreaux, who's Harlan, whatever the fuck his name is. He could be the next big star. Gable Steveson.
Parker Boudreaux is a much cooler name than the name they gave him.
Right. Gable Steveson could be the next Kurt Angle.
Rich Holland. Rich Holland's got a very Steiner, thing to him.
I'm not sold on him. And again, I'm not a fan of his, but people seem to like him. Carmelo Hayes, he could be a big star. So, I mean, time will tell. The ratings, NXT drew a 770, which is up from last week where they had a 601. So, they got a big bump in the ratings. We didn't even talk about Big E from Raw. Big E Langston, the former Big E Langston, had announced on Monday before Raw that he was going to cash in his Money in the Bank. The whole show was just him teasing that he was going to cash in on somebody. It was kind of funny because there's a bit where he's talking to Randy Orton and he's just kissing the belt the whole time. Not the belt, but he's kissing the briefcase and looking at Orton, which was creepy but funny. And then the main event was, Bobby Lashley versus Orton, which was okay. It was an okay match. MVP kind of got involved. Bobby wins with a spear and 1, 2, 3, and then he ends up taking out Orton by, giving him a dominator through a table, and then, quote unquote, hurts his leg. To which Big E comes out, and they go to break for whatever fucking reason, which that was stupid. Cashes in his Money in the Bank on not Big E, but Bobby Lashley goes for the big ending. He had to go for it twice because the first time Bobby got out. And then Big E wins the WWE title. The fans are happy. I was happy because I like Big E. Only time will tell how this goes. The fans seem to be happy. Of course, there's people that weren't too happy because, Big E, he's a goof gimmick. So I'm going to be positive to see where this goes because even when they were going with Kofi back in the day, the thought process was that should have been Big E. Because Big E actually looks like a star. Big E has the personality and he can work. I imagine Lashley's going to get, his rematch at Extreme Rules. I hope so. And Big E's more than likely going to keep that title. Or maybe they'll hold off until, Heck in a Box, next month. So, we'll see. What's your opinion on Big E winning and what they can possibly do with his title reign?
As you see, only you, Drew, I'm wearing my almighty Bobby Lashley Hurt Business shirt.
Right.
I am in mourning. I am unapologetically a Lashley mark, so I am very upset by this. I love Lashley. Lashley should be the world champion until he fully vests in Social Security, if he chooses to accept Social Security at that point. I'm glad for Big E. I'm glad he got his moment. All of that cool stuff. It was fine. It wasn't. I don't think it was that well done. I mean, the commercial break certainly takes away. I mean, I know why they want the commercials in there so people stick around. That's why you have commercials. But I actually want his title reign to be short. I want Lashley to get the title back and hold the title for an aggregate of at least a year, and then Big E can win it back. I'm fine with that. But Lashley's title run was too short. He doesn't get the credit he deserves. He was the most dominant champion, crushing most of his opponents, having the least amount of outside interference. I mean, Roman relied so much on the Usos. Kenny relied so much on the Elite. Lashley just didn't get the credit. He waited a long time. And so I have mixed feelings about it. I'm, 27% happy for Big E, but 73% really, really upset because I'm a Smashling mark.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. Lashley, he did a great job. I think his contributions as champion, I think they went unnoticed. Mind you, he became champion during the Thunderdome era, and again, he did a great job. And he did a great job when fans came back because Bobby Lashley looks like a fucking beast. MVP, I like him more as a manager than I ever liked him as a wrestler. And I like MVP with Bobby Lashley. Bobby Lashley should never talk. Because Bobby Lashley, when he talks, it just sounds weird. When he tries to, I'm pretty sure Bobby Lashley can kick mine and your ass combined. There's no doubt about that. But him trying to talk, it just sounds weird. But that's neither here nor there. MVP does a great job. I still think it's stupid that they split the Hurt Business. But there's a rumor that they might even bring it back, so you never know.
Well, that's the opportunity here, is to bring back the Hurt Business, and that sort of, gives Big E an out, and, then you could have a Hurt Business, New Day kind of thing. Right,
and as far as, Big E's title reign goes, I think because they already pretty much teased, because Big E showed up on SmackDown and they had a 6-man with the Usos, and Big E was telling Paul Heyman, after I'm done, or after your boy, or I worded it, but I'm going to face your boy at Survivor Series, or I might not even face him, blah, blah, blah. But Roman's going to be champion for a while. There's no doubt about that. But I think this is the perfect opportunity at Survivor Series as a way to end the brand split. Like, the match at Survivor Series, which looks like it more than likely could be Big E and Roman, is have that be a title unification match.
There's no end of the brand split.
I want it to be, though. That's the thing.
There's two different networks with primetime shows. There's not going to be brand split. And there's not going to be an end to the brand split.
But I want there to be, Jeff. Come the fuck up.
They're starting the draft this very week. I mean, okay, it's your show, and you can definitely fantasy book. But I'm just telling you, there's not going to be any end to the brand split.
Fuck. Damn it. Anyways, let's see. The rest of Raw. Karrion Kross had a promo that everyone liked. I know you didn't like it. I didn't say I didn't like it. I just didn't love it. But I am glad that they're going back to a character that's closer to some of the characters he wanted to go before. Some of the darkness that he and Scarlett were exploring may be closer to what Aleister Black is doing now. But whatever it is, let whatever character they're going to give him, let him run with it for 3 or 4 months and stop changing the man's characters. He's had I know the 3 or 4 of the characters are sort of similar, but he's had about 8 characters in a year, and he was out for 6 months. Right. Just let Karrion Kross be the badass. Let him be the badass in the black suit or the leather jacket, the tight jeans, and just be a badass. And that was his character in Impact.
Does he want to look like the mob enforcer? Fine, let him be the mob enforcer. Does he want to be deal with the occult and be sort of like a Luciferian? Let him do that. Does he want to be the mob enforcer that deals with the occult? Let him do that too. Whatever it is, it's fine. But that gladiator stuff was whack, and just the silent guy sort of walking there, just with the gladiator kilt, was maybe even more whack. I don't know, but the whole picture needs to be there with Scarlett. But yeah, let him do his thing. I don't know if you listened to Hammerlock Hangover yet this week, but I just feel like that Karrion Kross, that it's like he's like sort of like the poor guy is sort of like the walking embodiment of the civil war between wrestling fans. It's like he's like everything that like old guys like me like, the sort of like the big, strong, muscly guys that look mean, that have some badassness to them. He's got the beautiful girl, which harkens back to the Attitude Era Valet kind of thing. Not the biggest of personalities, but he can talk a little bit, and he's not like spectacular. He's not exciting in the ring, but he's good in the ring, like a Mr. Saito kind of badass in the ring. Versus the flippy-do stuff that I don't want to just call it the AEW, the Ring of Honor, the Jeff Hardy, the Rey Mysterio type. I feel like this poor guy, like the investment of every fan like me, it has been poured into this guy to make or break it, and that's a lot of internet pressure on a guy. I hear he ignores it mostly. I hope that's true, but just let the man run with his character. Give him Scarlett back. Give him back the cool entrance. Let him do his thing. And at least the last couple matches he's been booked in, he's killed the guy. He killed Morrison. He killed Ricochet. I mean, I feel bad for Morrison and Ricochet, but somebody's got to lose. And build him up that way, and let him get more and more brutal, so people boo him more and more. Right.
Can't really think of anything else that was really memorable on Raw. Raw got a 1.670 million, which is down from last week when they had a 1.8. The comeback on Monday Night Football definitely plays a role in that. SmackDown.
Well, every year, though.
SmackDown got a 2.1, but apparently those aren't the 100% ratings, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Unlike the prior weeks, though, when there was pre-game football, they were actually expecting the number to go up, not down.
Right. Last week they had a 2.3, which is the highest since January, and the previous week they had a 2.9 or a 3.0. Yeah, this week they had 2.1, but that's not the official rating. AEW, I didn't really watch too much of it. I watched the beginning with Adam Cole versus Frankie Kazarian, which, okay. The rest of the show I didn't watch. I know next week they're going to be in Arthur Ashe Stadium, which they're close to selling out. The big match is going to be Bryan Danielson versus Kenny Omega, and it's going to be a non-title. And I guess if Danielson wins, he'll get a title shot, which I'm going to be one of those people. This should not be a match on free TV. And I get why AEW is doing it, but it's just like Danielson literally just got here. Like, just build up this match. This match needs a better build. Even, Darby and Punk got a better build. And that took 3 weeks. This needs a better build. And
some matches don't need a build. It's okay. It's a non-title match. It's an important show for them. And AEW has been very transparent at TV ratings, and their TV contract is the most important thing for them. And they just had a pay-per-view. So it's not, so to wait on this for 2.5 months, would be foolish. Maybe the title match won't be for another 2.5 months, but it's fine. I mean, I know everyone's saying, well, there's rankings and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but the rankings are bullshit, and we've always known they're bullshit. And I've offered outs onto how they can fix that on Hammerlock Hangover. I'm not going to take up your show's time with that. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, for instance, the Butcher and the Blade had a title match on Rampage. The Butcher has been out for 7 months. They're saying they're 7-0 in 2021. Come on. I mean, that's just, I mean, so the rankings are nothing. So, if people would stop pretending the sports entertainment and professional wrestling are different things instead of synonyms, that's what irritates me. This doesn't irritate me at all. I think it's fine. This is what they need to do. This is how they get 18,000 people in New York. This is how they're going to kill it on the ratings. And if AEW Dynamite keeps, they have ebbs and flows, but they've been increasing ever higher. So if they can keep doing whatever they're doing, I mean, we don't need to talk about all the names that have been forgotten and that in other wrestling companies would be say are being buried. But if they keep doing what they're doing, and let's just say this time, next summer, that they've ebbed and flowed to where they're 1.6 and Raw sometimes dips into 1.6. I'm not saying anyone's won a war. What I'm saying is that when the new TV contracts come up and AEW is getting $15 million a year and Raw is getting $200 million a year, one of those contracts is changing, and probably both of them. So AEW would have a case for $200 million a year. Maybe they get $165 a year. Raw won't have a case for $200 million a year anymore. And if they do, AEW's got a case for it. Whatever it is, the game is going to be changed as these gaps start to narrow.
Yeah, you're right. I don't know. It's just me. I thought they could have built the match better, and now it's just we're getting this on free TV already. So,
I'll say one thing. Daniel Bryan seems a little low energy in his promos. I don't know if that's what he's trying to do, just be matter of fact. I don't need to impress anyone. I'm Daniel Bryan. I'm going to kick your ass, and everyone should be afraid of me. But he doesn't seem to have a whole lot to say, and he's so bland that his outfit is a white T-shirt and gray jeans.
Jesus. Yeah, I'm not digging the Bryan Danielson in AEW. I'm not really digging Adam Cole in AEW, and I already know how much you love Adam Cole. To me, you look at CM Punk. CM Punk seems like the only guy that actually has some energy for a guy that hasn't wrestled in 7.5 years. Whereas Bryan Danielson has been wrestling for the last 3 years, and Adam Cole is my age. We're both born in July '89. So he has a lot of energy. I don't, but it's another story.
Adam Cole seems happy. I mean, listen, yeah, I'm not an Adam Cole fan just because of his size, but he seems happy. I mean, there's no reason his first match should have been took him 12 or 13 minutes to be Frankie Kazarian. I mean, it should have been a 4 or 5 minute squash match. The end. But I don't see any real difference in his demeanor. He seems perfectly natural. And the crowd loves him, and he's getting those big pops. Right. I don't know what on God's green earth they're going to do with him, and all of these other folks, especially if the rumors are true about bringing in folks like Bray and probably some others. I mean, and why is Daniel Garcia in 2.0 on both TV shows every single week, usually in main events. I mean, I can't riddle that one out. Okay, they bring in Suzuki for for a couple cups of coffee. That they do this, they do that. It's weird, but that they're giving the fans what they want, and the fans are giving them a pass. Because I guess they're getting exactly what they want, and they're ignoring that there's people that aren't doing anything, that aren't advancing at all, or that just disappear for months at a time. But hey, it's a TV show, and people are enjoying the TV show. So what can I tell you?
Yeah, it's just I personally preferred Adam Cole in NXT. That's just me. Bryan Danielson, he looks like he just wants to go there to have fun, and there's nothing wrong with that. And like you said, Adam Cole looks like he's happy, which is good for him. He gets to be with his girlfriend. He gets to be with his friends. So happy for him. But I don't like the idea of them putting him in the Elite automatically, so he's just under Kenny's thumb. But I have a theory that this could lead to something. That
everyone has that theory, especially after Kenny loses the belt. Adam Cole say they'll have a little story where Adam Cole's like, you lost the belt. It's time for someone else to be the top dog. Kenny, you've carried us for a year and a half. Let me carry the team for a while now, and then they could sort of be on the same team for a while, and then they're not.
Right, and then they split up, and eventually that's when you can possibly bring in Kevin Steen, Kevin Owens, whose contract expires in January, and he could show up on AEW and reunite with Adam Cole and the Young Bucks. So there you go. But yeah, AEW, I mean, they do have a lot of momentum, I'll give them that, but it's just like, I mean, we're going to look at the ratings now. AEW drew a 1.175, which is actually down from 1.3, so, I mean, I don't want to be the Kevin Castle and be like, see? It's just a one-time thing. Like, no, it's just like, they still have the momentum. They're the
It's not a one-time thing. Because 4 months ago, they were doing 8s. So now they're doing 1.1s or 1.2s. I mean, they're like I said, there's ebbs and flows, but the flows, the flow is up. It's not a steady up and to the right. It's sort of crenellated, but it's sort of stepped, but it's like a ziggurat shape, but they're going up and to the right. It's undeniable. It's just if you had a chart, they started like a house of fire, then they sort of flattened out. They had a few spikes with Shaq and Sting, and a few other spikes here and there, and then they would give it back. They had spikes when NXT went to Tuesdays, and then they gave some of it back, and then they flattened out for a while. But now they've been going up ever since the Punk and Bryan and rumors started, and Nicole, and when these things materialize, they get interest. There was a spike for Nick Gage. I don't know why, but there was. It's trending up and to the right. So yes, they go to 1.35, and then they go back to 1.175. But this week, would anyone be surprised if this week did 1.5 with the card that's on with the Arthur Ashe New York show? I mean, the only thing holding it back, the only thing holding it back is that 30,000 of the people who would watch it are there.
I mean, there's no reason why it couldn't. I mean, because I know Jericho likes to be the AEW cheerleader. I mean, and that makes sense. He said, pretty soon in about 4 to 6 months, Dynamite's going to catch up to Raw and SmackDown, and then the first show after All In, they drew a 1.3, which is their second highest rating since the debut show, and it was like, oh, it happened in 4 to 6 hours. It's like, oh, shut up. But
he's Carney. He learned from the best. I mean, he's been around Michael Cole for 20 years. He overinflates everything. That's fine. That's this entire business.
Right. But I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if pretty soon AEW does start, catching up to Raw. They could catch up to SmackDown. There's no reason why it couldn't, because, I'll give Tony Khan credit where credit is due. He's definitely not a Dixie Carter. Like, he actually does know his shit. Like, he actually is a wrestling fan. It's not like Dixie Carter, who's like, I want to run a company with daddy's money. Like, it's not like that. Like, no, he actually knows his shit. he knows how to run a business. You know, he runs a sports team, which, I mean, granted, they're not very good, but he still runs a sports team. And, you know, he knows his shit, but he still has a long ways to go on how to be a wrestling promoter, because there's a lot he needs to do. Because, you know, that show that you, me, and RJ did looking at the AEW roster, there's a lot of green on that roster, and there's a lot of not very good wrestlers on that roster. And pretty soon...
But if he doesn't mind keeping them on payroll and he's not featuring them, what's the difference?
What I'm saying is pretty soon he's going to need to realize, shit, okay, Punk's contract is coming up, and he wants this much money, but I can't because I have too many guys signing on the roster. So pretty soon he's going to learn how to be a dick. He needs to learn how to be a dick and fire people.
Well, it depends on how that video game does, doesn't it? Because he's banked a lot on that.
Right, and I forgot who said this, but, you know, they said AEW isn't making money from wrestling. They're making money off of profit. They're making money off of, you know, the gate. They're going to be making money off the wrestling shows or pro wrestling tees. So, and then, actually, no, John Draper said this on Breaking the Apocalypse. Pretty soon, as soon as they start, you know, taking money from WWE, that's when WWE is going to have to wake up and go, okay, we need to do something. So, again, going back to Tony Khan, he's got a lot to learn. I like him. He seems like a good dude, but he needs to he has a lot to learn. You know, pretty soon he's going to learn that he needs to be a dick. Plain simple. That's just my opinion.
If he needs to be profitable, yes.
Well, there's nothing wrong with being profitable. And the one thing...
No, there's nothing wrong with it.
Right.
But there's also nothing wrong with not being profitable if you don't care. I mean, he does seem to have enough money that he doesn't care. And he knows that there's another, you know, $8 billion that he and his sister are going to inherit. So he's got his $1 billion to play with. Right. And another thing that comes into play, you know, the advantage that AEW has over WWE is that they allow guys to be creative. You know, and they're not writing the show. But they do need people to book the show. And because you watch the show and it's like, it seems somewhat watchable now, but there's a lot on it where you're just like, this could have been handled a lot better. So they need actual... There's also a lot of storylines and things that just get dropped and new ones get started. And, you know, they do a lot of resets and whatever. But, you know, it's Crash TV. It's Crash TV, and they give, like I said, they give the fans just enough of what they want, you know, to keep them happy and to keep them coming in. And isn't that what you're supposed to do in show business? You're supposed to just keep them wanting more.
I mean, that's true. But
the Death Star exploded. They had to build another Death Star.
That's AEW, folks. I mean, there's really only one bit of news, but I don't even want to give it too much attention. It's just Uncle Dave being Uncle Dave. He said Randy Orton was never the drawing card as Kenny Omega, Tanahashi, or Bryan Danielson. I mean, we already know where Uncle Dave's bread is buttered. I mean, it would surprise you if you found out that he got paychecks from Tony Khan. It really wouldn't. So I'm not even going to say that he is getting paid, but wouldn't shock me if he is. So. Or he just likes that shit. Or it's just both. But
it's been proven that Kenny Omega is not a draw. So, I mean, I can't speak much to Tanahashi, but, you know, I don't think he would be a draw in the United States. And frankly, selling out the Tokyo Dome for their 1 or 2 events a year in Japan doesn't equal what Randy Orton's done for 20 years. I mean, it's just dumb. Randy Orton is borderline a household name.
Right.
Nobody in the United States knows who Tanahashi is. Almost nobody knows who Kenny Omega is. I mean, Nikki Bella is more famous than Kenny Omega by large degrees, though she might be more famous than Randy Orton. Bryan, I mean, he's a draw, but I wouldn't say he's more of a draw than Randy Orton. I mean, Randy Orton never had the crowd behind them like Bryan did, but Randy's got that thing. He's sort of got that perpetual coolness and swag, and I hate to compare him to this other guy that we were just comparing to 40 years of bad behavior, but he's sort of like Flair. He's got that sort of it factor that just him being there is sort of cachet in and of itself. But I don't want to compare their drawing power. It's such a different era, but to say Kenny, it's just dumb. I mean, just look at what's happened with Impact. When he debuted, they had 220,000 viewers. This past week, 105,000 viewers. They had as low as 98 and 93 and 69,000 viewers with him as champion. So let's stop it. They had one pay-per-view that sold more than 1,100 buys, and it sold about 9,300. Kenny's not the draw. The thing about AEW is it's a true ensemble show. So him being the champion, he's been great as a champion. I'm not putting him down any way, shape, or form. But if it was just him and Daniel Garcia versus, I don't know, Jake Hagar and Sean Spears, versus Sammy Guevara for the millionth time, and Butcher Blade against the Lucha Brothers for a title. If it was cards like that, they wouldn't be received. No, they put together, usually pretty great cards. You have MJF against Jericho, big shit. You've got, you'll have the Young Bucks against FTR. They put together big time matches. So, they build a whole card. So to say Kenny is a bigger draw than Randy Orton is dopey, and there's absolutely zero way to compare that, especially with until 2 or 3 years ago, WWE had, Randy Orton was probably working 150 shows a year, and Kenny probably never worked more than 20 or 30 a year. It's just dumb.
Right, and it's just like, I forgot what the topic was. This was like a few years ago, but somebody posted something about Triple H, saying that he never created any stars, out of developmental. And John Draper has made it clear that he's not a Triple H fan, which that's fine. But he tried to say, that Triple H never did make any stars, and I point out the obvious. I said, the Shield, Roman is probably the biggest one out of the bunch. Becky, Charlotte, Bayley, Dean Ambrose became a star. Who's now Jon Moxley. Seth Rollins gets treated like a star. And I just named a few other people like Bryan Danielson. And
Matt Riddle is sort of becoming a star. Damian Priest is on his way to becoming a star.
Cross.
They have, well, I'd say the jury's very much out on him, on Keith Lee. But, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, I'm not sure if they're stars. Baron Corbin, I'm not sure if they're stars. But they're people who are going to have, Owens and Zayn were already in wrestling for 15 years. But, these are all folks that are going to have 15-year careers in wrestling. Is that a star? I don't know if it's a star or not, but they're having they're going to have successful careers making big money in wrestling. And I assure you that none of those people are going to need GoFundMes to get buried.
All right, and going back to what we were talking about, Draper, I forgot what was mentioned, but he honestly tried to make the case that Kenny Omega and the Bucks are draws, and I told him they're draws, but with a very niche audience, because that hardcore wrestling fan base that watches Ring of Honor, New Japan, GCW, whatever, they of course they're draws with that audience. But if I ask my mom who John Cena is, she's gonna know who he is. If I ask her who Kenny Omega is, she's going to say who?
Right.
Is that a wrestler? And if I show her a picture of Kenny Omega, she's going to be like, he looks like a dork. Like he's not a household name, and Kenny is not a draw. He has proven that he is not a draw.
Your new friend? Is that your new friend?
Is that Kenny? Is that Sheila Omega's son, Kenny? He's grown up.
Is that Jeff Lippman you keep talking about?
You better tell that Jeff Lippman to watch his little smart mouth before I sock him right in the kisser.
You look stupid with blue hair.
Why am I making my mom sound like Edith from All in the Family?
Generic, older woman, 101.
My mom is a white woman from Pittsburgh. She's an Irish woman from Pittsburgh. So, anyways, let's get off. Let's go back to
Ewan's watching this. He looks like a jagoff.
Archie, who are these young bucks?
So your mother is Britt Baker, confirmed? What?
Hey, Britt Baker's my mom. She's the DMD. She's also my mom. That's creepy. Anyway.
I'm MJF's mom, the dad.
Well, that makes sense. Anyways, let's get back to the topic. So yeah, Omega's not a draw. Orton, you can say he's a draw, but let's just be real. I don't think Orton gives two shits about drawing. I mean, let's kind of backtrack. The joke about Orton has always been that when he cares, he tries, but when he doesn't care, you can tell. I think Orton does care because he's proven that he does watch other wrestling. I mean, he said before, back in the day, a fan asked him if he watches TNA, and he says, "Yeah, I watch TNA. I watch it for AJ Styles. I even watched it for Jeff Hardy when he was there. I mean, he watches NXT. He knows. I mean, he pretty sure he watches AEW because he's friends with Cody. So he's friends with Cody and Jericho. I don't think Orton really cares about drawing because at the end of the day, if he were to be fired like tomorrow, he can still go. He still has a lot of money in the bank. Obviously, he can go back to his big ass house with his hot ass wife and his kids, and it won't bother him one bit. And if Tony Khan said, hey Randy, you want a bunch of money, Orton would be like, yeah, sure. So
I just don't think that there are any top card draws, anymore, and there haven't been for a while.
Roman?
Not even John Cena. Roman might be the closest thing right now. He's certainly closer than Kenny is. That if that show's in town and it's a good enough opponent, but that's a big if. If there's a good enough opponent, you may want to go just to see Roman and see that whole show. Brock, you may want to go just to see him. So those are the only two people who I would say are draws by themselves now. But I don't think any one wrestler should have to be a draw by themselves. I think it should be an ensemble, unless you're trying to get an audience of 500, where in that case, Nick Aldis can sell out a 500, room building or a seat building, not room. I don't know. I mean, there's no way to quantify this. It's just opinion. If you go by fame, it's not even close. If you go by money, it's not even close. It's just a matter of opinion after that. I mean, again, since The Rock, Steve Austin, and probably Hulk Hogan, there's probably been no, one guy top card draws before or after. Maybe in the 60s and the 70s, people paid to see Bruno.
Right. I mean, and I would say Roman is definitely a draw. I mean, because he pulled in the biggest gate for Madison Square Garden for SmackDown in history.
Yeah, but they also charge so much for tickets and merch and shit like that.
I mean, that's still impressive.
Of course, it's impressive, but everything is different when tickets are the front row tickets are $1,200 when 20 years ago they were probably $100. So I'm just saying these things are not quantifiable and. It's just another silly statement by Dave showing incredible bias. And, Randy Orton is a wonderful ensemble player, up and down any part of the card. Do I think he's a top card draw in and of himself? No. Do I think that Kenny Omega is? No. But if Kenny Omega is fighting Bryan Danielson, maybe. If the Young Bucks are in a triple threat with the Lucha Brothers and Proud and Powerful, sure, maybe. But if the Young Bucks are fighting Jurassic Express or Best Friends or Butcher and the Blade, no.
Yeah, I think Randy Orton would be a great, player for any company. You put him in AEW, I think he'd be great there. I mean, God forbid you put him in Impact Wrestling, he'd be good for them. But Orton would be He'd be a great ensemble player for any company. That's pretty much how it is. I know some people aren't Randy fans, and I can understand why. But I personally like Randy. I think his work isn't appreciated enough. Because the running joke is that he's boring and that he doesn't do anything exciting in the ring. He's very methodical, if that's the best way to put it. But I mean, I like him. I like it. I enjoy his matches for what they are. I mean, he's had some great matches. I mean, we're not going to sit here and say that he's had bad matches. He's had some very good matches. He's had memorable matches. But yeah, I mean, is he a draw? That could be debatable. But he's definitely a bigger draw than Omega. There's more people that would probably know who Randy Orton is than Kenny Omega is. Plain and simple.
Randy Orton's body of work speaks for itself. He doesn't need anyone defending him to Dave Meltzer.
Right, and I'm pretty sure if you asked Orton, he'd be like, eh. Like he'd be crying to the bank, just about how much Dave Meltzer thinks that he's not a troll. But anyways, that's everything we got to talk about, people. That's the show. Thank you to Mr. Jeff Lippman. Mr. Lippman, go ahead and tell the people where they can find you.
On Twitter, IcarusFellMD, or at IcarusFellMD. You can find me on the Hammerlock Hangover Facebook page. You can listen to me and Big Daddy Cool Steve Pena on Hammerlock Hangover. That's a wrestling podcast. My non-wrestling podcast was called Garden of Doom, and that is a wide, meandering path of topics upon which my mind is curious. So today's episode, I interviewed a captain in the local school of the Black Israelites to find out what do they believe, what's a Black Israelite, what's their doctrine. Last week I had on Bruce Fenton, who's a rather famous paranormal investigator from the UK, and he talked about his theory about how panspermia was from 800 to 600,000 BCE. That's before Common Era. And I don't know, I've had all sorts of, I've had the lead retired chief of NYPD detectives, Joseph Borelli. His team arrested the son of Sam, so he talks about that. The World Trade Center bombing. So it goes all over the place. I've had everything from Hollywood producers to an ongoing review of the Land of the Lost 1970s series. So anywhere my wacky mind goes, some great guests that have their own podcasts, including Our Fake History, Earth Ancients, The Eastern Border, The History of Africa, of course, Drew Yari, Kevin Castle's been on, you name it. We've got it. So there's something for everybody there.
All right, listen to Wacky Jeff's podcast. Garden of Doom, great show, love it. I got to listen to that. What was it, the one you just said, the Detective for the Son of Sam? I got to listen to that because I remember when you brought it up. I think it was either on your show or my show. I was like, I need to hear that when that shit comes out.
That one's called NYPD Blue. Pretty easy to figure out which episode that one is.
Right, I'm a big crime buff, so I'm going to listen to that definitely when I get off of this.
He's the real deal.
I don't doubt it. So you can find me. Social media is easy: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Drew Yari Show. You can also find me on YouTube. If you want to listen to the podcast there, watch my videos. And also Spreaker is the home base. You can also find me on Google, iTunes, pretty much everywhere the podcasts are put out. I have a Patreon for just $5 a month. It's a cheap deal. It doesn't cost too much, just $5. I do a show with Wacky Jeff. Isn't that right, Wacky Jeff?
Yeah, I wasn't even sure if this was going to be that show or not.
No, we need to talk about when we're going to do another show. But me and Jeff do a show. It's called From Our Lips to Your Ears, where it's just me and Jeff shooting the shit. It's not necessarily a wrestling show. We try to talk about other things that aren't wrestling, but, sometimes things come to our attention. And then I do a show with Mr. RJ, the Brooklyn Savage. It's called Revenge of the Savage Nerds. We haven't done a show in a while. I need to talk to him about when we're going to do that. Me and Mr. Ruben Prime. If you guys have heard of Mr. Ruben Prime, he has a podcast too. Where you can find him, as well as RJ. RJ, you can find his podcast anywhere on Google, Spotify. Ruben, you can find his podcast anywhere, Spotify and Google. He actually has his own website. He also has his own Twitch stream, which I donate $5 a month to. That's my boy. I gotta support my boy. And he supports me as well, just like Mr. Lippman and Mr. RJ do. And me and Ruben do a show called The Worst of the Worst, where we review bad movies. We're also thinking about reviewing, I guess, cult classics, under the radar shit. But for the most part, we review bad movies. We are actually going to be doing a show pretty soon, and I put up a poll on Twitter where the topic is going to be woke movies /TV, and choose wisely, because we have to review it. And just remember, it's about bad movies and bad television, so we review it so you don't have to watch it. So we're doing a service. The only thing that we ask in return is go to the Patreon and donate $5. It's a good deal. You won't find it anywhere else. But yeah, again, that's the show. Thank you to Mr. Lippman for taking the time out of his very busy schedule to join me on this silly show of ours.
You are welcome, and thank you everyone for listening.
All right, this is the free show, the free Drew Yari show. This is the ad version that you'll hear on Spreaker. I'm also going to put this on Patreon, where it'll be adless. It'll be uncut. So if you want to hear the uncut, Jeff, I say. So if you want to hear the ad-free version with no ads, nobody telling you to buy a Toyota or to go get a $2 hamburger, which actually sounds like a good deal.
Sounds delicious to me. What's wrong with a $2 hamburger?
Not a goddamn thing, Jeff. But I'm saying if you don't want to listen to ads, if people don't want to listen to ads, they can go to Patreon for just $5 a month and listen to the show uncut, uncensored, unrestricted. And that's it. But anyways, guys, have a great night. I'll see you hopefully sometime this week. This show came out late because I was just trying to figure out what to do. But I had to do a show this week. 2 more shows until 200. What I'll do for episode 200, I don't know. But I'll need to concoct an idea. But,
stay evil, my friends. He's going to send you all $5.
I will send you all... I'm thinking about sending you all $5, but send us all $5. Send me and Jeff your money. Send me and Jeff your money. It also helps with the show. It also helps us improve the show. It helps us, buy more equipment. Maybe buy a new laptop, which I desperately need at this moment. But it helps. $5 helps. It's not a lot. It's a good deal, but it helps. Everything donations help. But anyways, guys.
Oh, Drew, you heard him. His mother is a white woman from Pittsburgh.
She is a white Irish woman from Pittsburgh. She is not the mom from All in the Family. But
it doesn't get worse than that. Sheesh, Pittsburgh. That poor kid.
Yeah, Pittsburgh is pretty bad. But anyways, have a great night, guys. Have a great week. Like Jeff said, stay evil. Stay evil, my friends. Stay thirsty. Stay hungry. But most of all, peace.
The Drew Yari Show.
It's Drew Yari. It's Drew Yari.
The Drew Yari Show.
It's Drew Yari. It's Drew Yari.
The Drew Yari Show.
It's Drew Yari.
The Drew Yari Show.
It's Drew Yari.
The Drew Yari Show.